Hello everybody, welcome into my latest live broadcast. It's the 10th of May 2023. It is Wednesday. My name is CareyHolzman and I'm a professional computer technician, believe that or not. I've been doing this since 1991 professionally, meaning I've been getting paid to work on other people's computers and companies' computers and held accountable, responsible, held to deadlines, held to performance reviews, and I've just created this YouTube channel to share my experience in the industry. Now, I am a Gen X generation, and what that means is that I was born growing up in the same way my parents grew up. In other words, they were into cars and rock and roll. My parents were teenagers in the 1950s, and so the 1970s, 1980s, the world hadn't changed that much, right? We have color TV and things like cassette players, 8-track tapes. But I'm also experiencing the world as the current generation sees it, with all of the, portable phones, cellular technology, wireless technology, the internet, and Gen X sits in a very unique middle ground in that. So for the first 20 years of my life, none of these things existed with regards to the internet or Wi-Fi or cell phones did exist, but only for the rich who could afford them, and they were big and bulky. There was no texting or filming on them. We had a separate camera for taking pictures and a separate camera for taking video, and I was part of that transition of going from film to digital and the megapixel growth that's been occurring ever since, and the eventual replacement of film, where we're getting to a point now where digital is surpassing the ability of actual film. So it's an incredible generation to be a part of. And we Gen Xers mostly raising ourselves. We had, for the first time, divorce was very popular. We were latchkey kids. We would come home from work, and many of us lived with either our mother or our father, or split the time between them, depending on custody situations. And both parents were working, so they wouldn't get home from work till 5 or 6 o'clock at night. So when you got home at 3 o'clock or 3:30 from school, you had a key to unlock the door and go in and feed yourself and look after your younger siblings if you were the older of the siblings, assuming you had siblings. And there was no adult supervision there. You just sort of had to live in the wild, almost like a feral type upbringing. And so the Gen Xers, as a result, and I'm putting a blanket across this as sort of a statistical sort of observation, we've learned to take apart things to see how they work, what we call reverse engineering. We've learned to be very creative to finding our own solutions, because there was no one source of information, unless your parents had a subscription to the Encyclopedia Britannica, which my family did. It's a very expensive set of books, basically every book for the letter of the alphabet, along with annual update books, and my gosh, that was your only source for information, which wasn't too helpful when learning how to ride a bicycle. I taught myself how to ride on 2 wheels. My father didn't help me. I took my own training wheels off of my bicycle when I was 4 years old, which blew my parents' mind. They couldn't believe I knew how to do that. And it was a generation where you had to sort of rely on yourself. Nobody was going to help you. And that's generally what it was like Gen X, growing up Gen X. So when people see on my videos that I'm not watching or reading documentation, it goes to my upbringing of just kind of throwing me into it and saying, good luck, kid, you're on your own. Now I realize you don't need to have that attitude today, right? That's not necessary. But it's something I've gotten very, very adept at, because I didn't have a choice. And so I've learned everything mechanical and I've learned everything electrical that I needed to learn in my life, because we didn't have much money to afford to pay for somebody to fix plumbing issues or to fix our cars. And even wired up telephones in all the rooms, landlines. Went up in the attic and wired all the landlines myself and put phones in all the bedrooms in the early 1980s. And that was something not many homes had, but it was very easy to do if you had the knowledge, and it didn't cost anything other than the time and labor to do it, and maybe the wall plate. So when I see manufacturers saying a computer can do this or it can't do that, my instinct, based on how I was raised, is to push the boundary and see if what they're saying is true. You see, a lot of what happens in this industry is recycling. So if we have documentation from a model of PC, and all we're doing is we're upgrading that PC to another generation of CPU, and apart from the minor changes between one generation to the other, we just copy and paste the old documentation right onto the new one and kick it out because it's cheaper. Maybe just put in a couple of additions or changes with regards to what's unique about the new CPU, but it doesn't typically get completely rewritten or gone through with a fine-tooth comb for accuracy. Other times what happens in this industry is we get BIOS updates that can change the limitations of a computer. And we've always had these limitations. There used to be a time when you couldn't have bigger than a 500 meg hard drive, and then there was a time where you couldn't have bigger than a 2 terabyte hard drive if you wanted to boot from it. And these BIOS updates enabled those drives to be seen and function correctly. And this has gone on as far back as I can remember. There's always limits at some point. So sometimes documentation doesn't get updated because a company has to pay an employee to write that documentation. Then they have to pay the web developer to then update the website. And it's for a product they sold 3 years ago they don't sell anymore, so there's not much motive for them to update the documentation. They will update BIOSes as they become available if it makes financial sense to do so, or if it adds to the security or feature set of the product, especially if it's a newer product that's still being sold. So when I look at Miniforum website and we look at the models of PCs that they're selling, the mini PCs, a lot of them are carrying the same boilerplate maximum 2 terabyte storage allowed. And I challenge that because I understand there's some limitations on some chipsets. However, on these brand new models, especially the ones that have DDR5, I see no reason why a 4 terabyte NVMe shouldn't work, or for that matter, an 8 terabyte NVMe drive. So I don't have an 8 terabyte drive to test, but I've ordered one, so we can run these tests and we can figure out where the true limits are if you decide you want to order one of these mini PCs. And I can tell you right now, if you're buying a $200 or cheaper mini PC, don't even think about upgrading it. You're going to be significantly limited because the chip that's being used, the chip itself is limited in how many channels of input-output it can handle at one time, and that's going to affect the upgradability of the machine. But when we've got a modern processor, and in this case, you know, we're looking at a UM773 Lite. This is a brand new model Miniforum recently released. And I'm going to bring up the website here and show you what Miniforum says about it. And I think if you look across the models of all their Venus series mini computers, you're going to see a lot of copy and paste. And this is just standard industry-wide. This isn't unique to Miniforum. And so throughout this testing, I am sharing my results with my contact at Miniforum in the hopes that they will update the site to more accurately reflect what it's truly capable of. Now, as you can imagine, maxing this thing out is going to cost more than the unit cost. For example, the cheapest 8 terabyte NVMe drive I can find is a little over $800, which has about $75 in sales tax. That's going to put us close to the $900 point, which is way more money than what the machine cost. But that price is going to come down over time. So if you buy one of these Venus series Miniforums today with the DDR5 RAM, in theory, you should be able to do this upgrade. Your Venus series Miniforum DDR5 based computer should in theory be able to upgrade to an 8 terabyte drive when you decide you want to do that. So if what's holding you back is the upgradability, you're saying, well, 2 terabytes isn't enough. That may not be accurate anymore. Now, if you're buying the cheaper or older mini PCs, that's a different story. But when we're looking at these Venus series, we're looking at sort of a higher tier PC. We're up in the upper echelon. They still go a little higher than this, but this gets you into the high end. All right, this is top shelf here. So I don't have much in the way of DDR5 memory. I only have the one kit of TEAMGROUP memory of DDR5. Each one is 32 gigs. And I used it the other day to test the Miniforum NPB7, and that took 64 gigs and 4 terabytes just fine. I then tried it on the UM560 XT, 64 gigs, and the 4 terabyte drive works just fine. And I think because this is in the same family, the 773 Lite, I think it's going to work. But being a Gen Xer, I have to test it and see for myself. And I thought I'd share that experience with you. In the meantime, I've ordered some more DDR5 memory, plus I have the 8 terabyte drive coming in. So in the future, as I'm evaluating these mini PCs, any mini PC that sells for, I would imagine, $500 or more, likely is going to work fine with this, even if the manufacturer's site says its limits are lower. But we're going to find out today, and we'll see if it's going to work like I suspect it will. And I've never opened the 773 before. I didn't have any reason to. I'm not a fan that Miniforum covers up the screws that are required to be removed to open the unit up for doing a RAM or a drive upgrade. Yes, they give you some spare rubber feet, but then once you use those, you don't have any spares anymore. So I'm going to show you how I do it in a way to save the feet it's got and keep my spares. I never want to use the spares unless there's no way I can reuse the originals. Again, it's a Gen X thing. We didn't have any money. We always had to stretch things out. And I'd much prefer a design like the NPB7 that Miniforum makes, where no screws are even required at all. They just click on the top and it pops up. There's a happy middle ground that we see with other manufacturers like Ace Magician and B-Link, where the screws are just recessed and nothing's covering them and you can easily get to them. The only other thing Miniforum does that I'm not a fan of is they use a very narrow hole underneath the rubber foot for the screw to go in. So my traditional JIS driver is too wide to fit into the hole to reach deep enough to touch the screw. So for that, I'm going to have to use a smaller, more precision screwdriver. This is the iFixit kit from the Manta iFixit. A Manta screwdriver set from the folks at iFixit. Now, they're not a sponsor here. I have paid, just like the rest of you, to buy mine, and I've already got the bit set up. And then this iFixit spudging tool is not a part of that. This is sold separately, but I really like this tool. It's just well built, and I think these are like 10 bucks or something on Amazon. Thank you to Mark Gaines for submitting a $25 Amazon gift card before the show. Appreciate you, my friend. Cheers. And from Peter Laycock, contributing 10 pounds and joining us in the chat room. He says, good evening, Carey and Marlena. I hope everyone in the chat, all the best from Scotland. Thank you so much, Peter Laycock, or as we call him, Buster. Hope you enjoy today's video. This should get fun. I love when I get back to who I really am, which is I'd like to question things. I like to test boundaries. I like to see where the lines are drawn. And I like to establish that on my own. I don't like taking somebody else's word for it unless I know that other person really well and they have a history of being accurate. And I do believe it's a generational thing. We don't trust the government, my generation. We're very skeptical. And for a lot of us, there's people who talk the talk and people who walk the walk. So for example, we could talk all day about researching the BIOS and doing, all the keyboarding and researching to theorize with some level of factual accuracy whether or not this is going to work before we even buy the parts and try it. That's not who I am. I would rather just buy the parts and try it. Amazon has a 30-day return policy for most of the things they sell. And besides which, if I can't use these parts in this system, I'll use them in another system, so I'm in a unique position there anyway. But I figure I could put this in and test it and see if it works faster and with more accuracy than any amount of research anybody can do, given 30, 40,000 times more time for them to say, here, research that and get back to me. I'll have the answer in minutes, and that answer will be 100% factual, because I'll know from firsthand experience. I don't care what the manufacturer says. I don't care what the documentation says. I don't care what some stranger on YouTube says. Show me, prove it to me. Talk is cheap. I have to tell you, when people When people leave comments and they're being critical, they don't carry much weight to me because I don't know who they are and they're just typing on a keyboard. I can't tell if they're even a real person or if they're a child. I have no idea. But when somebody takes the time to make a video, right? And if they address that video to me, for example, post it on YouTube, then say, Carey, I have a differing opinion, or I want to provide more information. Don't write 3 pages on the comments section. I'm not going to publish that. That's spamming the comments section, whether you realize it or not. And I suspect people do realize it, and I suspect they do it on purpose. Post a video. Use your phone. And if you've got that much to say it in a video, and then post a link to your video in my comment section. And then I can share your video here, and I can see your face, and I will respect you so much more, and what you have to say will carry so much weight because of my generation and how I was raised and who I am. Just listening to blank text coming in from an unknown source that makes all kinds of claims is meaningless to people like me, because anybody can do that. But if you are so certain and you're so confident that you're willing to put yourself on camera, put it up on a video, and talk to me in the same way I'm talking to you, even if we completely disagree, I will absorb that information with respect. I won't dismiss it as noise, static, because that's what most of it is. It's all these people that want to vocalize how I should do my job or how I should do it differently when they themselves haven't done anything, as far as I can tell. So it's very offensive to me. But when somebody goes to the trouble of actually replying to me in the same format in which I am conveying my information, I have much more respect. Or for people that go the extra mile and we get to talk over the phone, just getting to know where the source of the information is coming from is very, very important, especially on the internet, and especially as we move into artificial intelligence. There's got to be a litmus test to tell if somebody's human or not. And this is going to get more difficult and more challenging as people's voices can be recreated and their image can be recreated to fake videos, even fake a phone call. So I'm not quite sure how we're going to solve that one yet, but we're not there yet, but it's coming. In fact, Google announced, Gmail is, it's called Google I/O, it's a conference that's going on. They're introducing the ability to use AI for responses to your emails in Gmail. It'll recommend a response. What? So, I mean, I kind of find it offensive that somebody, if I take my time, for example, to write out a thoughtful email with all my thoughts, and I get a boilerplate response from a company that's just a generic response they send, it's offensive to me. I took the time to write that, and you can't be bothered to write back. It's very disturbing. So now with AI, I find it just as disturbing for the same reason that as a human being, I took my time to put my thoughts together to send an email, and I would like a response that likewise is written by a person who thought it out and isn't just a copy and pasted boilerplate response. Now with AI doing these automated responses, it's going to be impossible to tell. We're going to get to a world where ignorance is bliss if we're not there already. Hello to all my friends in blue joining us. Hello to Luke Greeny, Garfield Rupe, Mats Olof watching us in Sweden, Richard Collins joining us, John Paul Bacon and Paul Garrett. Hello to Eileen Novak and Sarge Tech, Bob R. and Davis Parsons, Martin Anderson, as well as Kevin Doan, Charlie Beamer, Alej Depej, Robert McCord Magumi, and hello to Patrick Rousseau, Avery Ramsdorf, Andy Woodbridge, Ben Laird joining us from Scotland. Michael Dane, he's the man. Hal Grubbs says hello. R2 Rasenin saying hello. Andy Ray's jumping into the chat, says hello. Ron Barnish saying hello. Arnold Elbert, George Armstrong, LRCX, Fast Alpha, Scotty, Dan Nilsson. Welcome in everybody. About 200, a little over 200 of you watching live right now on this pretty nice Wednesday afternoon here in Phoenix, where It's overcast and in the low 80-degree Fahrenheit range temperature-wise. So I'm going to enjoy the last of this because that 100-degree weather's coming. The noise you hear in the background is still the air conditioners. So you're going to get used to that until about October. All right. So in front of me, I have the 4 terabyte TEAMGROUP NVMe drive. These are $199 on Amazon here in the US for a 4 terabyte NVMe drive, Gen 3. I also just ordered, are you sitting down? A Gen 5 NVMe from Corsair. It's shipping from overseas. And I'm going to use that on the big robot's foot build where we've got that 13900KS. That motherboard should be PCIe Gen 5 ready. 2 terabytes of Gen 5. You want to guess how much? Remember, the more you spend, the faster you can go. This is 4 terabytes of Gen 3 at $200. 2 terabytes of Gen 5 is $300. With sales tax, it's a little over $300. So I want to be one of the first channels to get this product and put it in and see what the performance numbers are. And I will remind you that those of you chasing benchmarks, it's a game you'll never win. PCIe Gen 6 will be out before you know it, and every generation of PCIe doubles in speed. So we double in speed from Gen 3 to Gen 4, we double in speed from Gen 4 to Gen 5, we will double in speed from Gen 5 to Gen 6. So you can only stay on top a short time, and the amount of return you get on that investment is diminishing. Instead of saving minutes or seconds, now you're just saving milliseconds. So it gets to be, you know, sort of a psychological mindset that marketing companies love to manipulate people with, where the practical matter of the data transfer isn't considered. It's just people looking at benchmark numbers. As you can imagine, there's a lot of money to be made here. And so I don't want big data to come after me for exposing this little manipulation they're doing. But I'm going to risk it for you guys and let you know. If you've got money burning a hole in your pocket and you want to go Gen 5 PCIe with the latest processor that costs the most amount of money and the latest motherboard that costs the most amount of money with the latest NVMe that costs the most amount of money, they would love you to do that because there's a higher profit margin on it for them, and you will be a pioneer. You will be somebody who waits in line where the rest of us won't wait. You'll be somebody who pays more than the rest of us, and you'll be somebody who deals with the teething problems that they will work out, so when the rest of us buy it cheaper and there's no waiting, all the problems will be resolved. So for all you early adopters with all that money and all that time doing all that work for the general population, we thank you. You're helping to keep big corporations in business with sustainable profit margins that allow them to make the cheaper products at lower profit margins that the majority of us can benefit from. So we do owe them all our gratitude. You'd notice I didn't use DDR5 for quite a while. DDR5 this time last year was about twice to 3 times the amount of money it is now. So it's come down. DDR5 is still more expensive by about 30–35% than DDR4. However, it costs more to make because they don't make as much of it, and as they make more of it and tool up the factories, the cost of production goes down. As more people buy it and demand goes up, they manufacture more, and then the cost to manufacture goes down, so then the cost to buy it goes down. Economics. All right, should we get the close-up camera going? Alhaj Depej has now been a member for 5 months. He says, hello, Carey and Marlena. I hope you both have a great day today. Well, I hope so, too. Nick Poverman says, Carey, I remember when my dad came home with his first acoustic coupler when he was a computer programmer for Ford. My parents said I was wasting my time with the computer and completely discouraged me from using it because I was just playing games, even though those games taught me the technical skills I know today, and that I needed to spend more time on my schoolwork and think about what I was going to do for a living or join the military. So computer usage was highly discouraged in my household as a complete waste of time. My father was a computer programmer. However, He considered home computers to be toys and a complete waste of time, and absolutely discouraged, wanted nothing to do with, and disparaged any of my development in that way. So it was a fight all the way around, because the general society in the 1980s, if you told people that you had a computer, they're like, why? You were a nerd, so you were a social outcast. And when your own family also is convinced, the whole world is telling me this is all a complete waste of time. And being Gen X, I don't take anybody's word for anything. I had my own experience, and here we are today. So I'm not going to say that always works out, but that was a pretty important one to have worked out for my benefit. So let's go to the close-up cam, and let's start with today's project. You ready?
Ready.
Come on over. Oh, it's a little tiny box. Hold on, I gotta make that bigger. There it is. And I see OBS had another minor update today. It's always good to see OBS development continue, and I was surprised to see that. And so I don't even test OBS. Like, if I see there's an update, again, I'm gonna chalk it up to my generation. I just grab that bad boy, and within seconds of installing it, I'm already using it live on camera. All right, so if you pan down, this is our DDR5 RAM right here. Oops. And then I had put this back in the box, but this still has our Windows install on it. And this is our Team NVMe 4 terabyte drive that is $199 on Amazon right now, May 10th, here in the USA, with free shipping. In fact, I want to go over to the Amazon website real quick, and I want to show you this drive. And I want to show you the RAM. So let's go to my window capture, and then I'll give you a quick break here in just a minute. I still have to find my link. I think that's my link right there. And then I'm going to turn close-up camera off for just a minute here. And I'm going to take a look at the RAM we're looking at today, and the reason why I selected it. So I've been using TEAMGROUP branded hardware in my professional computer repair and building business, upgrade business, for many years, and they've gained my trust, and they are, you know, not some stuff coming out of China. This is a Taiwanese company, and I've been very impressed with the quality of components, the consistency of the quality of the components from Taiwanese companies. So TEAMGROUP has the SODIMM DDR5. This is the very kit I bought for $155. Now, if we wanted DDR4, we can get a 64 gig of DDR4 from TEAMGROUP for $98. So that's the price difference there between DDR4 and DDR5, assuming the same capacity. Now, when we're looking for DDR5 RAM, I wanted to show you on an Amazon search result that I could have picked Crucial, which is what I think Miniforum is using for their RAM, is Crucial brand, and that's a Micron company, for the same exact price, except it says you can get some 90 days free of music from Amazon if you buy it, and it has delivery for tomorrow. Or if we go back, there's another brand I want to take a look at that I've had really good luck with. They're $1 cheaper. Silicon Power, I think this is the cheapest I can find here on Amazon. Silicon Power, DDR5, everything else being the same, 2 sticks of 64 gig. And free delivery, it's $1 cheaper. I think everything's got the same warranties. And I want to give Silicon Power a try because I've had good luck with their stuff. However, given a choice, from my past experience and reliability and compatibility, I've had really, really good luck with price and performance with Team consistently. So that's why we're going to use the Team RAM, and we're going to use the Team 4 terabyte drive, which I want to show you. If I can learn to type, I'll just type 4 terabyte NVMe, see what our options are that come up here. Now, when you use Amazon search, it's not very smart. It's going to come up with a sponsored link for a 2 terabyte drive, and we're going to get a bunch of 2 terabyte drives in our search results. So do be careful when you're clicking on links. You're going to see a price and you're going to say, hey, it's a really good price. And then realize, you're looking at DDR3 or something and when it comes to RAM. I've made that mistake. So today, right now, they have a sale on the Crucial P3. It's interesting to me to see Crucial competing with Team on this price range, because the Crucial product without the sale is more money than the Team product without the sale. And I've had okay experience with Crucial, and I will say the drives are pretty similar, but this is a temporary price. This is not the everyday price. Versus if we look at the Team option, and look at the prices here, $224, $399 if you want the Western Digital 4 terabyte Gen 4 drive that's twice as fast. You're going to pay twice as much for the same capacity, but you're going to have those read and write speeds that are twice as fast. Remember, it's a marketing gimmick, really, because few of you will notice any difference between 1,000 megabytes per second and 8,000 megabytes per second. Your Windows boot time is going to change by maybe a second or two, maybe. And all your product load times like Word, Office, products like Excel and Outlook, they're going to load within milliseconds faster. So is that worth paying twice as much? For some people, that answer is yes. As we continue to scroll down now, this is the TEAMGROUP drive here. And you can see its list price is normally $250. So this drive traditionally sells MSRP at $250 and rates in almost the same way with regards to everything except, let's see, the Team is a 5-year warranty. And what was the Crucial? Sometimes a drive costs more money because it's got a longer warranty, but 5 years is about the most you're going to see on these NVMe drives. And then some of the cheaper drives will be 3-year warranties on them. What's our warranty on this? Does this tell us? This says country of origin is Mexico. That's interesting. I think I'd rather have a product made in Taiwan before I'd have a product made in Mexico. And I've just had a lot of bad stuff coming out of China. I've seen a lot of bad stuff coming out of Mexico. So unless it's tequila or Kahlua, I think I'm going to opt for something Japanese or Taiwanese or even South Korean. I'm looking for the warranty on this. I don't see where it's mentioned. Warranty. Those numbers are decent numbers, but I think the Team performs pretty much the same. Meantime, 1.5 million hours. I wonder what the TBW is on this, if it's any longer. I haven't seen a failed NVMe drive in my life. So I think people worried about wearing them out is just your mind getting toxic. You're getting poison information that's got you worried about something that's highly unlikely. Use your drive like you would normally use it. I hear people that only use their drive occasionally because they want it to last longer. You likely will never see a bad one, and you will likely replace it before you wear the writes out, the write cycles. You will likely replace it for something larger and or faster long before you wear it out. Looking, I just don't see where the warranty information is. Four terabytes, Gen 3, oh, that's the same. Capacity, form factor, interface. Well, that's suspicious. Am I just too impatient and I'm scrolling through it? Let me see if the chat room is... Chat room might be shouting at me what that warranty is. Nick Boverman says, click on the 8 terabyte. The price is nuts. I've always said with NVMe drives, if you could get a terabyte for about $100, it's a good deal. But these days now it's a terabyte for about $50. But yes, if we look at the 8 terabyte, Sabrent's 8 terabyte is $1,099. Inland, which is one of the slowest traditionally that you can buy, is also, not surprisingly, one of the cheapest. There's the Corsair MP600 Pro XT 8 terabyte. This is the one I ordered here, and the reason I ordered it is it appears to be, it's TLC type NAND flash. It's an American company. It has the Phison controller. It's a 3-year warranty because it was between this and the, was it Mushkin? Now, this is interesting. Here is a JP600. Now, Levin makes some of the least expensive and slowest stuff I've ever seen. And you think, hey, I'm getting a really good deal. $169.99 for an NVMe drive that's 4 terabytes is an incredible value. But it's slow. If we look at the performance numbers, and I'm sure somebody here has done a crystal disk mark and posted it here on Amazon. Oh, they're even telling you right here, 2,100 megabytes per second. Now, as a budget NVMe drive, there's nothing wrong with 2,100. Those Intel 660Ps I'm using on the 8-year builds, I was buying those because they're budget friendly, they're reliable. It's a name brand Intel. Levin isn't exactly a name brand. Maybe they will be. I don't know what their support's going to be like, but those Intel drives that were the budget ran about these speeds. It doesn't matter if you plug this into Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5 socket, that's as fast as it's going to go. So you might say, hey, you know, who cares about the performance? I want the capacity. Well, if you don't care about the performance and you want the capacity, why not just buy a mechanical hard drive? You can get, I mean, for this price, $170, you can get like a 12 terabyte drive for that price. You could do way better than 8. You could probably go much bigger than that, as a matter of fact. But to me, if you're going to have 8 terabytes of storage, it makes more sense that you'd want that drive to be faster because you obviously have more data than most people. You also have to figure out a way to back that thing up. I will say $169.99. I could certainly understand why people are attracted to that and want to buy it. I'd also understand if it had a short-lived life, if they didn't have good support. That would all make sense to me. It is a 3-year warranty unless the TBW has been exceeded. And I think that's true of all drives. And if you care about capacity and you don't care about performance and you're willing to take the risk on support, like I said, support might be good. I don't know. I don't expect much at that price. You really need to lower your expectations if you want to be a reasonable person and not be unhappy with your purchasing decision to understand what's coming out of that cost savings. It's not like they're giving you more for less. They're giving you less for less, all right? Just to be clear. But do know these options are available for you, and then you can, of course, choose accordingly. And I never did find the warranty on that other drive. But again, warranty has really been a non-issue. In my business, I've never seen a failed NVMe drive, not yet. So they can make the warranty 10 hours, 10 minutes, 10 years, not using it. What difference does it make? Luke Grania says Crucial is showing a 5-year warranty on their site. Most of the big reputable brands will carry a 5-year warranty on the NVMe drives, and they all did that when NVMe drives first came out. And as more players entered the marketplace and there was more aggressive price cutting, well, they've got to be able to save the money somewhere. So then companies that were previously offering 5-year warranties dropped it to 3 on some of the more price aggressive models. When you're paying extra you should expect something extra, whether it's performance, warranty, or customer support. All right, should we get back to work? And thank you to Nick Poverman, and thank you to Luke Greenia. Sarge Tech thinks it'll be 171 years before it fails. I don't think it's that long. I think it's closer to 30 to 50 years before it fails. And that's if you're writing, I don't know, 40 to 60 gigs a day on it. It should last quite a long time. Like I said, it could die for a controller failure. It could die because of a motherboard failure. It could die because of a power supply failure. There's a lot of other reasons the drive could fail. But if you were to run out of write cycles, the drive doesn't fail, just so you know. The worst thing that happens if you run out of write cycles on any solid state drive or flash drive is it becomes read only. So all the data can still be read indefinitely. It just doesn't have any more write cycles to save any new data. Now, when I say indefinitely, everything has a time period and an expiry date. When it comes to archiving data, the best way to archive data is to put it in multiple sources, different places. Some people are under the belief that if you put data on a hard drive or a flash drive and you put that in a drawer, after a couple of years, the data just mystically vanishes. And again, they're getting poisoned with information that is not normal. There's something very wrong. And there's information that is inaccurate or is omitting critical information so we can understand why that's happening. Simulations of aging don't really simulate aging. The only way you can truly accurately simulate aging from this Gen Xer is you age it. So I can tell you from experience, firsthand, that I've had both hard drives and solid state drives sitting on a shelf for years, 4, 5, 6 years. I can take those drives down and plug them in. Everything is still on them. I have never personally witnessed a drive that's been sitting so long that the data magically vanished. Now, I've seen circumstances where the drive has been sitting somewhere and somebody else in the household or in the business knocked the drive off the shelf and didn't tell anybody. Then they go plug the drive in, it doesn't work. So, there's all kinds of circumstances that can exist where temperature, humidity, leaks, if the roof is leaking, it's dripping right on the shelf where you're storing your drive. It's going to have an impact, right? There's certain things not much you can do about. But this idea that just putting data on a drive and storing it for a couple of years, the data's not going to be there, prove it to me. Start a video, if you're one of those people, start a video today. Say, here's my drive, I'm going to put data on it, here's today's date. Now I'm going to make a follow-up video in 2-3 years, and we're going to plug it in and let me see your missing data. Show me. It'll take you years to make that video. And here's the thing. Once you plug that drive back in, your clock starts at 0 again. So if you decide you want to check it in 2 years, and then you plug it in 2 years later and you find everything I'm telling you is true, so you decide I'll wait 2 more years, that's not 4 years anymore. The minute you plugged it in, you recharged everything that you say is fading. So therefore, you're starting back to 2 years. So make sure you wait long enough to be absolutely certain. You better make it 5 or 6 years and then plug that drive in. I have at Studio a 40 megabyte external hard drive that belonged to my mother in the early 2000s. That drive still works. All the data that was on it when my mother had it is still on it. And you know where it is? It's sitting on the shelf in a closet at Studio A. It's probably got that much dust on it. So this nonsense about data evaporating is purely theoretical. And I would challenge any of you to make a video to prove, to show me that the data from sitting vanished. All right, there's me just being a Gen Xer. All right, let's get back to the close-up camera. Let's get some work done. Let's go to close-up camera right there. You ready?
Yes.
All right, come on over. Here we go. In the chat room, Let's see, what am I missing in the chat? There are two types of oh, somebody's asking an M.2 question. So SATA is the protocol, the data protocol of how the data is being transmitted and received, SATA. NVMe, or non-volatile memory express. We use a lot of words in this industry that I don't understand why we do it if we already have other words. And sometimes we can't decide on what the word is we're going to use. So M.2 is the shape of the drive. It's the way it can, it's the, not the shape, it's the connection at the end of the drive. That's an M.2 connector. It's also a form factor. So NGFF, or next generation form factor, or M.2 is effectively saying the same exact thing, two entirely different and unrelated ways, but they revert back to meaning the same thing. We can talk about PCIe Gen 3x4, and that's referring to the data transfer speed of the M.2 as it's connected into the PCIe bus. The SATA connector is not connected into the PCIe bus, and therefore it's already reached its saturation point. We can't push any more data through it. So if you want to go faster than 600 megabytes per second, you have to go to NVMe. And as they improve NVMe and improve processors to handle more data, you have to understand your processor has to have the capability of accepting all that data. Doesn't do you any good to have the connector. Doesn't do you any good to have a Ferrari and go drive it on a country road somewhere that's not even paved and it's filled with potholes, or to get on the freeway at rush hour. Yeah, the Ferrari has the capability of going 200 miles an hour if it's on a proper road in a proper environment, not necessarily in the snow and the rain and an unpaved road or a crowded road. And in much the same way, an NVMe drive has the ability of running at whatever its particular limit is, and then your motherboard, depending on which chipset and which CPU you have, has its limit. And the idea is that if you want the best bang for the buck or you want the most performance, that you're going to align those two. That you're not getting a super fast NVMe drive that's being slowed down by the motherboard, and you're not saving a ton of money buying a cheap NVMe drive where the motherboard could run twice as fast in its data transfers if you'd only spend a little bit more money. So both things have to be aligned. You can't just put faster tires on a car and make your car go faster unless the car is being slowed down because of its tires, all right? So ideally, you need to have both the fast car with the fast tires. One without the other doesn't result in those performance numbers regardless. Davis Parsons with a $10 super chat said, I have a SanDisk SSD that is so old it has a 4-pin Molex power plug and it's still in use. Of course, that's normal. When you hear people talking about running out of write cycles online, either they're lying, they're exaggerating, or they've damaged the drive in some way and they're just refusing to acknowledge that, or ignorance is bliss. They didn't do anything wrong, right? It's the drive that failed. And they come up with this reasoning, and then other people watch that or read that and then take it as their own, and then they propagate that out, and it's completely false. It does happen. It absolutely does happen, but it's extraordinarily rare. I know people are hit by cars in Phoenix every day. I see it on the news every day. I have never in my life saw anybody ever get hit by a car. And I don't want to. But just because it happens, compared to the number of people that are, in the streets and on the sidewalks every day, yes, it happens, but the likelihood is very, very tiny. Okay, now, since we've got the close-up camera here, let's go ahead and take this machine back out. Now, I already did a live review of the UM773 Lite. I have to say, if you're looking for a mini gaming PC on a budget, this is the way to go. So as a reminder, we'll just show the unboxing again. There's normally a little plastic bag this comes in. I throw that out. And this looks like, in many cases, other Miniforum builds. And then in the box is our power adapter. And once again, it's using a standard PC power plug here. That's a chunky power adapter. And it even has a little base right here that we can, if we want to sit the mini PC on its side. It's something unique that Miniforum offers. There's the spare rubber feet I was talking about right there. I do not want to use them because then I won't have any spares. Then the argument is, what's the point of having a spare if you don't use it? Peace of mind. I like knowing it's there. If I should tear one of the rubber feet or if somehow the rubber foot gets lost, then I will use the spare when I have to. I'm not going to use the spare because I ripped the foot off to open the unit up to do an upgrade. And then what am I going to do the next time I have to open the unit up? I've used my spares. Now you notice there's only 2 rubber feet in there, and I'm going to show you why. Okay. John Paul Bacon is asking, have you had any SATA M.2s that have failed? No, I have not seen any M.2 drives fail. Never. I've seen only 3 of the 2.5-inch SATA solid-state drives fail. Only 3. And I've been installing them since 2013. I have replaced a lot of them because the SSDs in 2013 were like 60 gigs, 120 gigs, and they were like $200. They were the cheapest I could buy at that time for my clients. Those clients have upgraded 2 or 3 times since 2013. Probably 2 times. And every time we do the upgrade, which is a new motherboard, new processor, we get faster RAM and we get larger, faster storage. So none of those drives I installed in 2013 are in use today. The dentist office still might be using them. I don't know. They have somebody else maintaining the computers. But last I checked, the computers I built in 2014, that dentist office was still using. But I don't know if they've upgraded them or not. But those were using 120 gig drives from 2014. So it's pretty rare to see a bad SSD unless you're buying generic brand stuff, or if you're somebody who's constantly plugging and unplugging things, and if you're in your computer all the time, you're more likely going to make yourself a problem. But I will say, using name brands like Samsung, I've never seen the only time I saw a bad Samsung drive was I was interviewing Brian Cometa over at a company called $300 Data Recovery. And he had a brand new Samsung drive that had just come out on his bench with the circuit board out, and he was running data recovery on it. And I had never seen a bad Samsung drive before that. But of course, you know, bad products happen even to good companies. The question is, are you going to get good support? And that's important to me. I'm trying to run a business. If the company I'm buying my parts from doesn't support me, then for me to support my customers, I have to make a decision. Do I pay for the repair out of my pocket? In other words, if a customer of mine has, let's say I bought some cheap generic SSD off AliExpress, customer doesn't know what's in the computer. They bought a Carey computer. They're trusting me to pick the good parts and sell them at a good price, to not gouge them and to sell them quality. They don't know. So let's just say that drive, that generic no-name drive from AliExpress fails. They call me under warranty. I've got no support from the manufacturer because they're in China. They probably don't even speak English. And there's no way for me to send it back because it cost me more to send it back in shipping than what it'll cost me to replace it. Some people run their businesses that way. Some people are like, I'll take the gamble for the added profit margin. I'm going to charge them the name brand price, but I'm going to sell them a generic drive. They won't know any better. But then if a problem happens, then that person doesn't get support from the manufacturer. And then they have to decide, do I pay for a new drive out of my pocket to honor my warranty to my customer? Or are they one of these greedy business people that say, sorry, can't honor that warranty, you'll have to buy a new drive, but I'll put it in for free. You know, your warranty is labor only, something like that, some nonsense. I see a lot of computer repair shops that play games like that, and the customers don't know that the company plays games like that until they find themselves in that position, and it's too late to ask for a refund. And these types of business owners typically don't have any money. They spend every penny they make, and they use their own company as their own personal bank account. So their financing and their accounting is all off. So I try to keep everything above board, above, try and keep everything morally and ethically that's the way I want to phrase it. I want to be able to sleep at night, and I want customers to come back to me. I don't want to have to spend money on advertising. Word of mouth is totally free. And just like a car, A computer may not be something people buy that often, but when they do, I'd like them to come back and buy another one from me. Or if they know anybody that needs a computer, I want them to refer me. Or if they work for a company and they're looking for a new IT person, I want them to recommend me to their boss. And that has happened. That's the big companies that I'm running, that I'm not running, I'm the MSP, the managed service provider for, are strictly word of mouth referrals from people that were home customers, home users, that found me, had me do the work, and then in time, eventually got me introduced to their boss where they work, and that's how that happened. And one of my clients has been with me now, well, two of my clients have been with me more than 12 years. I think one of them, we're going to be getting on 20 years here pretty soon. And I got to tell you, customer acquisition is a pain in the rear end. It's one thing to be a tech and know how to do the work, but how do you find the work? It's going to cost money in advertising, or it's going to cost time in knocking on doors, printing up flyers, whatever you can do to get your foot in the door just to get the work. That's half of being self-employed. Customer maintenance, just maintaining the customer you have, is way, way cheaper. It's an easier way to make a living, in my opinion, in my experience, than just saying, to heck with that customer, I'll go get another customer. Customer acquisition costs are way too high. Customer maintenance is much cheaper, easier, more sustainable, more profit. So yes, if I buy a product that I've put into a system that I've sold to a customer, and that company, let's just use the AliExpress example. I'm going to gamble with my business acumen. I'm going to say, I'm going to save money on this product so I can make more profit on it. Customer won't know the difference. But the gamble is, if the product breaks under warranty, I have to fix it for free, and I will have to pay out of pocket for a new drive, or risk losing the customer and all their future business and future referrals. So you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out of pocket to buy it. But you also know I'm not going to even go down that road to begin with, because I don't want to gamble my business success on higher profit items that don't have the support infrastructure. It's not likely going to be sustainable. It'll be a roll of the dice. And for somebody like me, I want control. I don't want the universe to decide for me or my bad decision making to prematurely put me out of business. Well, if you're a business owner, every day, all you're trying to do is keep your business alive. Every day it wants to die. And every day, you can go a certain amount of time, surfing, getting by, riding the wave. What's the word? Resting on your laurels. But then to pick it back up again, the longer you delay, the harder it gets to build momentum back up. The more it costs, the more revenue you've lost. So it's easier to just maintain. But I can assure you, every single day, my business wants to die. And it's only through my perseverance and my stubbornness that I do what I need to do to keep it going another day. Now, some days are easier than others. Some months are easier than others. Some years are easier than others. But the pandemic was a good test of getting creative and figure out how I can still keep my career. Now, 10 pounds from Mark Gaines. Mark has the 12. I think he's the first one I've seen with the 12. Can you see that? He's got the 12 right. Whoops. I thought it went to a 1.
12.
So it's 13 it turns to, doesn't it change to like 1 year or
No,
something?
12 is the max.
Oh, and then it goes to 24 after that? Mm-hmm. Well, get used to looking at that number 12, Mark. It's going to be there a while. We'll have this conversation, I hope, this time next year, when that 12 will change to a 24. There's no numbers that YouTube offers for the months in between. But that's the first one I've seen. Right on, Mark. They say, poor Mara. She's standing there while I'm going off. All right, let's come down here. So here is our Miniforum, the 773 Lite. And then you'll see we've got two different kinds of rubber feet. We've got these in these corners and these little round ones in these corners. Now, As I previously mentioned, if we look at the Miniforum website, let me bring that up here real quick, and let's see what Miniforum says with regards to the upgradability of this machine. So I'm going to go back to my screen capture here. I'm going to give you a break for a minute here, Mara, because we're going to talk about this for a minute. I've been prematurely wanting to dig into this, and I have to set it all up correctly. This machine it starts at $379. Now, this pop-up for the UM560 XT is a pre-sale. We were lucky, we were fortunate enough that they sent us one early so we can review it. And I can already tell you that the 64 gigs of RAM and the 4 terabyte drive are compatible with the UM560 XT. I've already tested. So we're using the UM773 Lite. This is a very recent model, by the way, just a few months old. This is an AMD Ryzen 7 7735, 7735 HS CPU. Now this is the bare bone unit. What Miniforum sent me was I believe it's a 16 gig model with 512 gig SSD. If we look at the details of this unit, it'll likely tell us that it has a 2 terabyte storage limit. It does have USB 4 on it. Windows 11 Pro is pre-installed. So keep in mind all you're getting for your money here. These are some comparisons from the previous generation. Of course, the RDNA integrated graphics. And we see that it's 225% better performance on the built-in graphics from the previous 5800 HS processor from AMD. And it can be used in business, for gaming, as a home theater PC. It uses DDR5, PCIe Generation 4. So Generation 3 will work in it. Just run at Generation 3 speeds. And it says the maximum amount of memory is 64 gig, and that's because the largest memory module you can buy is a DDR5 SODIMM. Actually, I don't know. On DDR4, it's 32 gig. But on DDR5, I think that's the maximum SODIMM you can buy in capacity. Hence, you only have 2 sockets, and if 32 gigs for each module is the maximum available for sale, then 64 gigs cannot be exceeded unless if somebody knows of a DDR5 SODIMM module that is bigger than 32 gigs, let me know. I'll order it and we'll see if it works. It does have room for a 2.5-inch SATA hard drive or SATA solid state drive, SSD. And they get in on about their cooling and how they do that. More on USB 4 if you wanted to hook up an external GPU to have a proper gaming system. It'll support 3 4K displays at 60 Hertz, all by itself, with just out of the box, ready to go. And these are all the ports on the back. We've got a clear CMOS button, power button, audio jack, which is for a headset or a microphone or headphones. USB 4, Type-C, USB-C, that's data only, no power coming out of that. A dynamic microphone is also built in like a laptop would have. There's our voltage input. We have a 2.5 gig Ethernet port. USB 3.2 Type A's. These are generation 2 of USB 3.2. 2 HDMI outs, and then we have 2 USB 2.0s. These I use for like keyboard and mouse. I don't want to waste my high-speed USB ports for things like a keyboard, a mouse, or a printer. I still don't see where they mention any limitation of the storage. Let's go to specifications. The processor is 8 cores, 16 threads. That's just killer. Storage shows PCIe 4 SSD. I don't see a limitation mentioned here. But I have seen it on some of the other products. And in some cases, it's right, but I don't think it's right on this product. Now, If we want the bare bones version of this, that means we have to provide our own RAM and our own storage and our own operating system. It starts at $379. But if you want it with 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gig of PCIe Gen 4 storage, NVMe, with Windows 11 Pro, that's only, $110 more. If you want to go to 32 gigs of RAM, you're at $539, and 32 gigs of RAM with a 1 terabyte SSD, $579. So whether or not you can save money putting in your own SSD and your own RAM depends on what your demands are, right? In some cases, it may be cheaper to just buy it already done for you. And in other cases, it may be cheaper for you to get the higher capacity, like if we want more than 1 terabyte of RAM, more than 1 terabyte of storage, they don't offer it. Here it is fully maxed out. The way they max it out is 64 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte storage. But I think we can put 4 terabytes of storage and maybe even 8 terabytes of storage in this without a problem. And that's what we're going to find out today. That's what all this is about. I have to put all these disclaimers in. I have to explain all this because people on the internet will call me out if I don't. So don't blame me. It's just the world we live in. On the other hand, I'm sure many of you didn't know this information anyway. So those of you who watch my channel regularly will hear me repeat things over and over. And that's because I get new viewers to my videos every single day. And they don't have that foundation upon which, to build on. I have to start over again. So, all right. That covers that. Let me go back over to camera 1. And we'll take a quick look here. Elko says, yes, DDR5 SODIMM's maximum capacity is 32 gig. So again, that's your 64 gig. Tim Teal says he started with Instant House Call yesterday and it worked great. Awesome, Tim. Make sure you let Corey know that you heard about him through me. All right, camera girl, now I'm ready to work. I know I've said that twice, but I mean it this time.
I need a sip of Pepsi Zero.
Pepsi Zero. Get out.
Okay.
All right, we're ready to do some work now. John Williams wants to know, will exceeding the manufacturer's recommended hardware void the original warranty? No, it will not. If you damage it by opening it, you scratch the circuit board with your screwdriver, if you cause damage to the unit, then you void your warranty. But in other words, if you're trying to jam DDR4 in there and you break the socket, that's on you. So no, it will not void your warranty. All right, you ready to come over?
Ready?
Let's see, turn that one on. Come on over. Here we go. All right, so for this, I've got this little screwdriver right here, and I've got my spudging tool, and let me move the keyboard and mouse out of my way. Now these little rubber feet, these are no big deal. These little circles, I can just pull up on those. And they just have little sticky goo on the bottom, and I'll set that over here for now. Sticky side up so it doesn't stick to my table. And these, I don't have any problem putting these back on. They're not that difficult. There's not much that secures them anyway because you just have that little ridge. Even though the entire bottom is sticky tape, the only thing the tape has to stick to is this little ridge on the inside, which I'm realizing the lighting isn't very good for you to see. Right inside here, it's got a little ridge, and that's the only thing the tape has to stick on. Now, I hate to remove these big feet. Part of the reason is it's not uncommon to grab one of the feet and start to pull it and have the tape stick to the computer instead of sticking to the foot, because that's not good. Essentially, what it means is you're going to have a rubber foot with no stickiness on it, and you want to just punch a hole through to get to the screw through the sticky tape, and then just stick the bare rubber foot back on the back of the sticky tape. Because trying to peel the sticky tape off, you'll probably stretch it and tear it. The other thing I wanted to show you is the size of the hole. I cannot get the screwdriver into the hole. This little screwdriver is too wide. So that's why I'm going to use the iFixit kit jeweler screwdriver. And instead of peeling the feet off, you can see how close to the edge the holes are. So we can estimate the hole to be about here. Now I have tried drilling through this, and all it does is it creates a little slit. It doesn't actually tear the rubber out into a circular form. What I found is just easier is to lift up this corner and just pull it back enough to get to the screw. See? This is exactly what happened. Look, the film that's supposed to be on the back of the foot is stuck to the case. So I don't want to ruin this foot by taking it off. I'll just punch through that. And then that'll lock the screw in so we don't lose it. And we'll go ahead and take out these corners here. And I highly discourage you from using an electric driver for this kind of work. It's very easy to strip things out. And then we'll do this last corner. Once again, I'm going to just peel the corner back just a little bit, enough to expose the screw. And once again, the tape has stuck. Now, the older the unit is, the more that tape is going to be glued. So I'll just punch through it. So the other complaint, I don't want to call it a complaint, we'll call it a suggestion for improvement from the folks at Miniforum, besides not covering the screws with the rubber feet, would be to give me some kind of a pull handle or some way that I can pull this bottom plate out. Best I can tell, we just have to find a side with a spudging tool and pry it up. Now, if you get to a corner that won't come up, it's likely because you did not unscrew the screw all the way. If it's giving you that much resistance to take off, I strongly recommend that you do not use brute force. This is a piece of plastic and you can crack it right in half, and you can certainly crack the little clips and everything that are on it as well. Right? Got a lot of little clips under there. There's our ability to install a 2.5-inch drive on the lid. And because you saw me break the seal of the tape, you know I've never opened this up before. And Miniforum has some pretty unique cooling solutions here. For one, we've got a heatsink right here, right next to our M.2 drive right there. And what is this cooling? I'm not even sure what that's cooling. And we've got a heat shield right here on top of our M.2 NVMe drive. This is all the stock components. Like I said, I've never opened it before. This little white connector right here, that's for a cable that's included in the box that'll give you a SATA data and power connector if you were to attach a 2.5-inch drive. That's where the cable goes. Here's our RAM. They're using Crucial branded RAM. We're going to pop this out. These are what, 8 gigs a piece? DDR5, and we're going to put in our TEAMGROUP DDR5. This is a 32 gig module, and this is a 32 gig module, and that's it. We cannot upgrade that RAM any further. We're done. With regards to the M.2 drive, I'll just take out this one screw. Likely our Wi-Fi card is going to be under here if we wanted to upgrade to Wi-Fi 7 in the future. It should be no more difficult than taking off the lid, pulling up. Oh, this is all one piece. Okay, so here's what I have to do now. Here's what's going to happen. These two pieces are all one piece, and these two screws are what hold it in. So that's the heat. This is the same heat sink. But the thermal tape is going to stick that M.2 drive to the heatsink. So if I want to just lift the heatsink off without the drive sticking to it, I need to put this screw back in. But that's okay. I'll show you what's going to happen here. We'll take out. I definitely need my glasses for this one. Can you see the screws there? I'm going to go with this one here. And these are different than any of the other screws used on the system, so be sure you put these little screws back where they go. And there's just 2 of them holding it in place. Now this whole piece should come up, but it's going to stay attached to the M.2, so I'm going to have to slide it back out of the socket. Very carefully, a little wiggle and pull. And just like I predicted, it's stuck. And that's fine. For our purposes today, we don't need to have the heatsink on for right now. It looks like it's covering up, I'm going to guess those are VRMs down there. Not positive. But if I was going to leave this 4 terabyte drive in place, then I definitely want to put the heatsink back on to stave off the heat. This, I want to remind you, this TEAMGROUP 4 terabyte drive is only a Gen 3 drive. So it's not going to get as hot as a Gen 4 drive. Now I just put this back in the package. This is the same drive I used the other day, which we already installed Windows on. And I can put that in. And this is double-sided. You'll see it's got chips on both sides. There is our Wi-Fi adapter right there. So easy enough to take out that 1 screw and those 2 antennas. This little plastic protective cover we'll remove. First, no, you take out the screw. Wait, which happens first? Take out the screw first, then remove the cover, then take off the antennas. They just pop on like buttons, but be careful, they're fragile. They're very easily broken. Then this is a little M2 style Wi-Fi card, but it's much shorter than an M2 solid state drive. And any compatible socket M.2 style Wi-Fi card will work. So when Wi-Fi 7 comes out, if we wanted to upgrade this, we'd simply remove everything as we've done, take this out, put the new one in, screw it down, attach the antennas, put the plastic on it, then screw it down, and then put it all back together. And that upgrade is good. Would you check the door for me? I'm going to go to camera 1. Looks like we're getting a package delivered. Okay, thank you. And we're going to come back to this in just a minute. And while she does that, I'm expecting a package that needs a signature for it. So, and that may be Amazon, I don't know. We'll find out here in a minute. Eugene Hidalgo says hello. Welcome in, Eugene. Shamim says, hello, Carey and chat. Here in Sweden, the Samsung QVO 870 8 terabyte SATA drive is $495. And Amazon US has a little bit smaller price of $457. Yeah, if you want to go to a SATA 8 terabyte 2.5-inch drive, they're much less expensive than the NVMe drives because of the size and the performance. But you can probably find even a cheaper 8 terabyte 2.5-inch drive for that matter if you want SATA, if you're willing to live with that limitation. Man, this thing's beeping off the hook. Is that an Amazon delivery or is it? Is it snow cone syrup? Does it feel like there's liquid in it?
I'll let you figure that out.
All right, yeah, it's not important right now. I'm in the middle of a live broadcast, but thank you for getting that. Luke Greenia says, I sent a $25 PayPal contribution to celebrate the 12 months. Oh, Luke is also 12 months, right on. He says, thank you for all the great content and friendship. Back at you, thank you so much. Captain Blinsky's saying hello. He says, there's so many new streams, it's hard to keep up. Welcome to my world. I gotta work on top of doing the streams. You're just trying to watch the streams. Imagine what it's like being me. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the 4 terabyte drive in. Now, as I mentioned, for testing purposes, we don't need to put the heatsink on, but I think I will just anyway. Now that I'm thinking about it, let's do it the right way here. Now, I want to be careful not to pinch those antenna wires that run underneath. And I normally don't use that jeweler's screwdriver. When I do this kind of work, I like a magnetized JIS or Phillips Zero driver for M.2 screws specifically. And so we'll secure that back down. So the drive would go in first. Now, as for this heatsink, as I mentioned, this is not entirely required for our purposes, but if I were going to leave the machine in this configuration, so let's just say we were, it would have been easier for me to leave the drive secured and lift the heatsink up. Because right now, my concern is I don't want to bend the drive, so be very gentle. Can we get the close-up camera again? And I'll let you take a close-up of the Kingston drive that comes with it if you choose to buy the model that's not bare bones. Let me know when you're ready.
Ready.
Come on over. All right. All right, so there's the drive I just took out. And here's the heat sink without the drive attached to it. And then there's the new TEAMGROUP 4 terabyte Gen 3 drive installed. And now I'm going to set this down so these holes align with those standoffs. Ooh, that thermal tape is really sticky. And again, these are the only screws that are like this in this entire build. So you want to make sure you put the exact screws that belong back. Do not mix up the screws. It's very, very, very important. Now, I'm not even going to put the lid back on it. Here's our old RAM and our old NVMe drive, and this is Crucial brand and Kingston brand on the storage and the RAM. So I like that Miniforum, kudos to Miniforum for using name brand components. And let's see, I need a keyboard and a mouse, so I'll take my mouse dongle and I'll plug it in back here. I do wish we had a Type A up front, a USB Type A, but that's okay. Not a big deal to go 5 inches to the back. Again, kudos for the power cable using a standard PC power cable going into their power adapter, and a pretty lengthy cord at that. That's another complaint I have on many of the cheap models of mini PCs, is they often have a very short power cable, or they use a laptop style power plug, which for me, because I don't do a lot of laptop work, I don't have many of those cables laying around, but I have a ton of PC power cables laying around. Now I'm going to step around to the other side of the table here so I can plug in the Ethernet cable, and let's see, let's turn this around this way. Down here on the floor I've got a spaghetti of wires. Here's HDMI going to the capture card. Either one of these, doesn't matter which one we use. I have my Ethernet cable right here. I'll plug that in to our 2.5 gig LAN right there. Now technically I have this machine upside down, but it doesn't care. It'll run in any orientation you place it in. It's all solid state components anyway. Even if it was a mechanical hard drive, it doesn't care if it's mounted vertically or horizontally either. It used to amaze people back in the day when I'd build desktop towers and they'd have the hard drives vertical. It'll work like that, or they were upside down. It'll work upside down, yep. Okay, here's my power cable. Plug that into some juice. All right, now, it's time to see, is the BIOS going to recognize the 4 terabyte NVMe? Let's go to camera 1. We'll give camera girl another break. There you go, you're clear, thank you. I'll turn on the HDMI input, and then I will take camera 1 and put me into a corner. Whoops. Camera 1, put me in a corner. Here we go. As pretty as this mouse is, it's a little difficult to scroll with it. So I'm struggling. And I will turn the power on, which is, it's upside down. So the power is now right there. Here we go. Now we've got our new 64 gigs of RAM and our 4 terabyte NVMe. It's got to train the memory, so our first boot might take 2 minutes. It's quite possible. Don't freak out when you change your memory that, oh, my memory is not compatible or it's bad. The training only has to happen once. So be patient during this step. Like right now I'm hearing the fan run full speed. One of the tricks you'll learn is when you hear the shifting noise of the fan quieting down, that's a hint that the BIOS has trained the memory. So we'll give that, it should be about 2 minutes. It could take 3 minutes. So be patient on this part. Like I said, you just have to do this the one time. There it goes, and that wasn't too bad at all. Now, will it recognize the 4 terabyte drive? We'll find out if it starts loading Windows. If it comes up and says there's no bootable device found, then that would mean it doesn't recognize 4 terabyte drives. It looks like Windows 11 is loading. Here we are. Now, we want to verify everything. We can go, let's see, over to full screen. And we can go to, let's see, we'll go to settings, and we'll go to system, and let's see how much RAM it's reporting. Not bringing it up. I am still getting accustomed to Windows 11 and how they've moved everything here. Here we go. That's what I was looking for. 64 gigs of RAM is recognized. Verifying the processor is what Miniforum said it was. And if we want to check out our storage, we can simply go to the yellow folder, go to this PC, and right there it tells us what our storage is. Right-click, go to Properties, and we can see that as a pie chart. That little blue sliver is how much of it we're using, and we can confirm there is full 4 terabytes being seen, represented in one mathematical formula here and a different division over here. 3.72, because they're dividing it differently, is the same as 4 billion. Yeah, 4 terabytes. These two numbers are the same number, it's just how it's calculated. I know that's a little confusing for some people. Welcome to the world of Windows. And it works perfectly, no problems. Now, as I mentioned, this is a great little mini PC for gaming. I am noticing, though, we're not online, and I would suspect that's because these 2.5 gig LAN drivers apparently are not built into Windows 11 to auto-detect. So if we look in the device manager, I bet there's a bunch of stuff missing. Yeah, so that's why we don't have the network controller. You wouldn't have this problem on a pre-built from Miniforum, but if you do buy the bare bones, you'll want to go to Miniforum's support side of things to download the drivers needed. Be sure you get the drivers directly from Miniforum, and that way you're not taking any risks with viruses or other adware or unwanted software coming from third-party sites. Or in the case of like the network interface card, get it directly from Intel or Realtek, whoever makes it. I can't remember who makes this one. And of course, we need to get on the internet in order to hit Windows Update. But there it is, 4 terabytes absolutely is confirmed to work on this, no problem. So that's $155 for 64 gigs of RAM from TEAMGROUP and $199.99 for 4 terabytes of storage from TEAMGROUP, bringing our total after tax to just about $400. And then if you add that on to the price of the system, which bare bones is what, $479, we can get Windows 10. We can buy a Windows 10 license code from the folks over at VIP CDK Deals. And they've got the links in the video description below this video. And those product codes, the licenses for Windows and Office are guaranteed. But I wouldn't buy a Windows 11 Pro license because it costs more. Buy the Windows 10 Pro license instead. Save your money. And you don't have to install Windows 10 Pro. You just need to use the license code to activate Windows 11. It'll work once. It's a free one-time upgrade from Windows 10 Pro to Windows 11 Pro. Then that activation stays tied to that motherboard in perpetuity. So unless you try and reuse that product code on another system or somebody were to steal it, you'll never have to enter the product code again. Well, if you have to do a fresh install, you just say, I don't have a product key. You go follow the same steps you see me do on my channel all the time. The first time you hit Windows Update, it recognizes the serial number of your motherboard. It's actually doing more than that, but I'm just trying to simplify things for easy digested information, technical information. We don't need to get into the nitty-gritty of that. You can find that on other YouTube channels. The bottom line is your motherboard has unique identifiers. And the Windows Update server, the Windows Activation server, records that. So the next time you install Windows and you go to Windows Update, assuming it's still Windows 11 Pro and not Windows 11 Home, then it reassigns your product key back to you. You don't have to enter it, and it reactivates for you. So the folks over at VIP CDK Deals are making you guys a heck of a deal over here, because not only are the prices super, super low, you can get an additional 30% off using the coupon code CAREY. And you can still get Office 2016, which does not require a Microsoft account to activate. And it's like $26. But if you ever have to reinstall it, unlike the Windows key, it does not tie to your motherboard, and it likely won't reactivate again. So if you ever have to reinstall it, you may have to go buy a new key at that time. And even if you had to buy a second key, a third key, a fourth key, a fifth key, a sixth key, if you're one of those people that likes to reinstall, you're still going to save a ton of money, because one Microsoft Office key from Microsoft is about $450 to $500. So one way you can avoid that scenario is, after you've activated your software, make a system image backup of your computer, all set up the way you like it. And never, ever reinstall ever again. Just restore your image and everything stays activated. You don't have to reinstall. It's less time consuming. It happens much more quickly. And you don't have to reconfigure everything. All your configuration settings are all saved. Your wallpaper, your icon locations, your bookmarks, favorites, documents, all of that gets copied over on a system image. And then if you ever want to start over again, just restore your system image. Now, I use Acronis. They're another company that we partner with from time to time. And I will get you guys a discount code for Acronis, and I will add it to the video notes, and that'll be a permanent discount code. It's a subscription-based service, but when it comes to backup software, you really want it to be subscription-based, because the technology is moving so fast. You might have new hardware that an older backup software says, I don't know what that is. Some new type of drive, for example. Like older versions of Acronis may not recognize what an NVMe drive is. So with that being said, I use Acronis. I image the drive after I've got everything activated the way I like it. I save money on my product key. And I've got a system right now that's pretty well maxed out. I'm still curious if it'll recognize an 8 terabyte. I kind of feel like if it'll recognize a 4, it should recognize an 8. And I'm not condoning that you should put an 8 terabyte drive into any computer, quite frankly. That's a lot of data to lose. There's a lot of reasons you can lose data that have nothing to do with drive failure, but then there's also drive failure. And it's going to take longer to back up if you're using 75% or more of that storage. So then you're going to be discouraged from making the backup regularly. And you'll be one of those people that has a backup that's 9 months old or something. And so all the data that you've added in the last 9 months is all permanently gone if you have to restore. But Acronis does do incremental backups, so you can just back up the changes. But you definitely are going to need another 8 terabyte drive minimum to back up an 8 terabyte drive. So the more stuff you want to have, the more it's going to cost you to keep it. Just like regular stuff, why do you think people rent out storage places? Because they don't have room to put their stuff. It's too much stuff. You have too much stuff, you need to get rid of it, or you need to pay to store it. It's going to cost money one way or the other if you keep it. David Martinez in the chat says, hello, welcome in, David. Let me go full screen back on camera 1. Thank you for the close-up work today, camera girl. Let's, you know what, before I do that, let's run Crystal Disk Mark. Now, we already know from previous videos what this drive does. Well, let's just verify we're getting consistent numbers. We should get Gen 3 speeds, which are around 3,500, 3,600 maximum out of Gen 3 on sequential reads, and somewhere around 3,000 probably on the writes. The writes, in theory, should be able to do as fast as the reads if we want to pay more for the drive to get that performance. But for $200 for 4 terabytes, I think it's very, very respectable. on the write speeds. So let me plug in my utilities flash drive and let's copy over Crystal Disk Mark and see what numbers we're getting out of this 4 terabyte drive. Drive D, PC testing, Crystal Disk Mark Portable Edition. That way I don't install any software, just run the portable version. Double clicky, 64-bit, yes. And we're on drive C. We could set this up as an NVMe SSD here. It doesn't really make any difference, but I saw somebody in a YouTube video do that, and I was like, oh, didn't even know that setting was there. And let's see what kind of performance numbers we're going to get out of this $200 4 terabyte NVMe drive. As I mentioned, Generation 3 limitation is about 3,600 megabytes per second. The only way we get above that is typically with caching. So if you've got like a Samsung SATA drive that shows it's doing 6,000 megabytes a second, that's the cache. That's not actually transferring in real life. So here we're looking at 3560, which just about takes Gen 3 to its maximum performance ability. And on the writes, it'll probably be closer to 3,000, which is still super fast. And at $50 a terabyte, what a bargain. What do you think? Flip or Flop said you can do WinSat space disk space minus drive C. It'll check speed with command. Use any drive letter you have available. So I've never used the operating system to tell me what the speed is or to tell me if my memory's any good. I always go to a third-party utility. So I've never done that before, but when this is done, we'll run that and see how it compares. We're never going to get two numbers that are exactly the same on a benchmark, just so you know, but we should be within a reasonable fraction of plus or minus 30, 40 on either side of a sequential read or write. But it could go plus or minus as much as 100. Anything more than that, I'd say something's wrong with the test. Maybe something was happening in the background. Doman 2000 says, I still prefer not to have one giant system partition and split it into separate data partitions. I'll tell you why I don't like that. What you're doing is you're imposing a limitation. You're creating a wall that one day you're going to run into. Sooner or later, at some point, one partition is going to be too small and one partition is going to be too big and you're going to have to resize it. Back in the day, we did partitioning in order to manage cluster size. So people that do this, they separate the partitions, are usually older people and they're utilizing what they're comfortable with from 2 decades ago. And that's okay, but it's really making your life so much harder. They say, oh, it's easier to back up. It is not. It's absolutely not easier to back up. It's in your mind. You create a folder, create one big partition, and then create a folder, call it Drive D. Then just back up the Drive D folder. There's your easier to back up. Checkmate. Without the self-imposed voluntary wall you put in place that one day you'll hit. It's hard to know which partition over time is going to run out of space first. So if you just have one big partition, use folders instead of partitions. And you never run into the wall unless your drive is too small, in which case that's an easy solution. You know to replace the drive. That's my attitude about it. But I'm also a big believer that you should do what you want to do. Whether or not it makes any sense, whether or not it's an outmoded way of thinking, if that's what you like, it only impacts you. But I can tell you, when I'm responsible for other people's computers, we don't do this because we don't want to deal with corrupted partitions. We don't want to deal with all of the issues, including false senses of security. Like if you get a virus, if your drive fails, your data is no safer on another partition. That's ridiculous. It's not easier to back up. And as far as like wiping and reinstalling Windows, there hasn't been a reason to ever do that since essentially Windows, certainly since Windows 10. It's all built into Windows. So it's just a way we used to do things, and people tend to go back to how they learned because that's what they're comfortable with. And that's fine. There's no rule against it. You're not doing anything wrong. But I couldn't maintain my business like that. That's going to be too many support calls for all of those reasons. And it just overcomplicates things unnecessarily from my perspective. Now, if you'd asked me that question 20 years ago, my answer would have been different, and the reasoning would also be different. So there's our final number. So writes were a little lower than I expected at 2766 on the sequential writes. Let's go ahead and try this DOS command here that FlipperFlop is recommending. He's saying you got to start command with administrator privileges. Let's give that a shot. We'll go up here, type CM. I got to turn my keyboard on. CMD, right click, and run as administrator. All right. And he said the DOS command is winset. Wonder what that stands for. Disk minus drive space C. Oh, it's so tiny I can't see anything. Okay, now I got to walk over to the monitor to read it. Drive C can read, flush, sequence. So this is showing a sequential read of 3219 and a sequential write of 2697. So that sequential read is a bit slower than our crystal disk mark results, but the sequential write looks pretty close to the same. In both cases, the crystal disk mark results were faster, but if we run the test again, you'll see we're going to get different numbers. But they should fall within a certain plus or minus reasonable range, but still, in both cases, shows slower numbers than crystal disk mark. So let's run crystal disk mark one more time and see if the numbers are greater or smaller than the 3560 and 2766. I'll just do the sequentials so we can do this quicker. It's interesting to know, I mean, that test happens awfully quick, and that's a little concerning because you'll notice when crystal disk mark runs, it's doing 5 tests, and it's taking either the best of the 5 or the average of the 5, I'm not sure. This looks like it's only doing it once. So I think the crystal disk mark is a more accurate result based on how it's achieving the number. I also don't know what size file we're dealing with here, whereas here we know we're dealing with 1 gig. But in a pinch, it's nice to know. I appreciate learning that today. I didn't know that was built in. I prefer crystal disk mark. Easier to read. I think the testing's much more accurate. But that's okay. I can put that in my back pocket and holster it for someday. 3562, 2760, it's pretty consistent. So which one do you believe? It's sort of like when you have, if you have one clock, you know what time it is. But if you've got a watch and a phone and a clock on the wall, I can almost guarantee they all will say a different time. Which one do you believe? Now, in my case, I think the phone is probably going to be the most accurate since it's timed with the cell phone tower. But if you had a watch and a clock on the wall and a clock in your car, so none of those are syncing to a time source, you really don't, you're not certain what time it is, right? So by doing the tests all the same, in other words, using crystal disk mark across universally all the benchmarking I do, then we have a fair thing to compare against. But if I'm using one piece of software one day and another piece of software another day, it's not fair to compare the two because you can get vastly different numbers just by changing your benchmarking software. So whether or not the benchmark is accurate or not doesn't really matter so long as it's consistent. So as long as I keep using the same benchmark across the board on videos I've done 5 years ago to videos today, then we have a baseline upon which we're making comparisons. But if we change the benchmarking software in the way that it reports, then the only thing we can compare it to accurately is that same benchmarking software on older systems. So for my purposes, I prefer to stick with a particular benchmarking software across the board, even if better benchmarking software is available, because the minute I switch, there's all the old benchmarking I did goes out the window and all has to be redone again for comparison reasons. But an interesting little tip there about Windows 10. Oh, sorry, that's a Windows 10 or 11 option. Oh yeah, that's snow cone syrup that arrived. Okay. Been getting into snow cones lately, can you tell? Now, I gotta grab a cold Gatorade. We'll go back to camera 1, and we'll address any questions you guys might have with regards to the Minis PC or other tech questions. Let me go back to camera 1, full screen. Here I am. And let's switch back over to the chat room. And thank you for that, Flipper Flop. Good to know. Lou Greenie wants to know, are there any opinions on the Team T-Force Extreme ARGB 16 gig 3200? I'm interested in getting it for my desktop. It's fine. I have no hesitation buying anything with regards to storage, flash drives, or RAM from TEAMGROUP. I've used a lot of their products in those categories, and they've proven to be very, very reliable. So take a look at reviews on Amazon and see what other consumers are saying. But I would have no hesitation blindly recommending it just based on the fact it's made by Team. Nick Poverman's heading out. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us, Nick. We'll see you next time. Patrick Russa also proudly displaying his 12-month badge. Right on. So that's the third one I've seen today. Patrick Russa and Luke Greenia have the 12. My eyes are not cooperating today. And Charles Eslek also with the 12. Patrick Manny and Chris Johnson just became members for the 12th month as well. Right on. You guys rock. That is so cool. It's hard to believe. It's been 12 months since I offered memberships. It feels like it's been 3 or 4 months, maybe 5 at the most. Crazy how time flies, huh? Rob in the chat room has a question. And Rob, please watch the chat room for other answers in our community. We have very knowledgeable people in our community. As you've just witnessed, they're teaching me things. Let's see what Rob's question is. I have a hard disk drive that when I plug it in, causes the PC to go very slow and black screen. Is it completely broken? What is the make and model of the drive? Jim KJ3N said, I've only had one problem with TEAMGROUP RAM, but it was a very inexpensive A320 motherboard. Some RAM works flawlessly. Oh, the same RAM works flawlessly in a different motherboard. Ryzen chips AMD chips can be very finicky, especially the earlier Ryzens and Threadrippers. You saw my experience and frustration dealing with RAM compatibility issues. And it's one of the reasons I shy away from AMD. I see folks quoting the lyrics to a Chicago song on time. Let's take a look at the email here and see if I'm missing anything. There's Lou Greenia's $25 PayPal contribution. Right on. Thank you so much. All right. Positive Gene jumps in the chat, says hello. Gil Garcia says, Carey, I sent you an email Yeah, so, yeah, we'll have to talk on the phone, Gil. Gil wants to volunteer to do a long-term review of one of the mini PCs, and I need to see if Gil qualifies to do that. And I also need to determine how Gil intends to use it. I don't want to send him a mini PC for review that won't be useful to him, or that'll be over the top overkill that he won't test thoroughly because he doesn't use it for that reason. So for those reasons, we'll talk. But I would love to hear from people who own these mini PCs and report back on how's it working for you. Is it something you're glad you bought? Is it something that has benefits you didn't realize until you owned it? Or did you end up sending it back because you didn't like it? And if so, why? I'd love to hear from regular folks who actually live with the product day to day. I think that's far more valuable than, you know, what some reviewer on YouTube thinks of a product. Because when it's your hard-earned money you spent, and you're the one who's got to deal with it every day and rely on it, that review is typically going to be far more useful to another viewer than a content creator's review, just generally speaking. So I love to hear from you with regards to anything I show on the channel, or certainly any of the products I endorse. And in this case, Miniforum is not a sponsor. They send me the product for me to review it. No money's exchanging hands. I'm not required to say certain things or to not say anything. I am free to speak my mind, and I very much cherish that. And that's the same relationship with Ace Magician / Camrui and B-Link. And hopefully they'll continue to send me more units for reviewing. As you can imagine, the units can start building up, and my intent is to go back and re-review them. But I may decide to send a couple out to viewers I recognize, people that have been a part of this community for a while, who haven't received anything from the channel, so that they, if they're willing to, will report back and let us know what it's like to live with. Gerhard Huff wants to know, does a 3-year Intel NUC count as a mini PC? Well, the Intel NUC is the original mini PC. I did my first Intel NUC build at Studio A in 2013. And we only recently retired that machine. And that was a Celeron. I mean, if I had plunked down more money and put an i7 instead of a Celeron as the base for that NUC, it would probably still be more than adequate today for the reasons it's being used for remote work. But 3 years old isn't very old. David Martinez says, Carey, I've got 8 months of membership. Oh, thanks. Thanks all. Right on, David. Well, thanks for being a member here. I appreciate the members so much, because I can't explain what's going on with YouTube revenue. It's preposterous. No matter how many videos I make, it's like I make less money. It shouldn't work that way. I should be making more. And then I don't know if something's wrong with YouTube's reporting, but I should have twice the revenue YouTube says I have. Something's really broken. I don't know what it is. But in the meantime, today's video, for example, I've got $155 in the RAM and $200 in the NVMe drive. So for me to make this video cost me out of pocket about $400 after sales tax. And this video likely may generate maybe $100 in 30 days. So the more of this content I make, the deeper in the hole I go. And what's saving me from that are the membership and the super chats. If there are periods of time where I'm not making any videos, like if you see I'm only making videos on Fridays, it's likely due to financial constraints that are limiting my ability to buy the product. And I don't want to spout, be a corporate spokesperson for a manufacturer that wants me to promote their products and essentially make a 20-minute commercial. I see some of the big content creators. In fact, just today I was watching one, and right in the middle, the content creator goes off on, some security product. Really? Had nothing to do with the subject of the video, It felt very unnatural, and to me it was disingenuous. But I understand why he's doing it. He's doing it because you got to pay for what it costs to make videos. And ideally, you'll end up with money left over, so you can buy food and clothes, pay the electric bill. So the members, that's why I turned membership on 12 months ago, is I was trying to find a creative way to bring income in while still maintaining journalistic integrity and independence. And it's my thanks, my deepest gratitude to the members. And I understand that everybody can be a member, and that's fine and good. Having you here and participating with us is also a great way to show support. Just being kind and being supportive, really. Because that makes me want to make the videos, to interact with you guys. The community here is absolutely outstanding, and I can't say enough good about it. But I want everybody who watches these videos for free to understand that half of this content wouldn't be possible without those paying members. Flat out, that's a fact. So hopefully you can appreciate those who can and do support the channel, because it's benefiting everybody, whether they do or they don't, right? So I want to give them credit because they deserve credit for the fact that I've got the content to make. All right. I will reach out to the folks at Team and see if maybe they might sponsor some videos. I like their products. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is I get companies reaching out to me about, gaming chairs. We'll send you a gaming chair if you'll review it. I'm not reviewing a gaming chair. I told you that offer I had from somebody representing AliExpress. It's insulting. If I'm going to be a sellout, at least make it worth my while, that's all I'm saying. Preferably not be a sellout at all would be my preference. Let's see. Peter says, thank you for the videos you make. Well, again, don't thank me. Thank the members. It's because of them half of the content, 50% of the content I make would not exist if not for those members. Hughes Adventure says, great videos. I've been a subscriber since you were uploading videos of PC builds in your own home. Yeah, Studio A as we call that. Joshua says, I would personally like to see more repair videos. I enjoy doing the repair videos. However, there are a couple of barriers that have to get crossed. One is the owner of the computer has to give me permission to show it. And you have to understand, people have personal data, could be on their desktops, things that identify them, and they don't want it shown to the world. So most people that I do repair for say absolutely flat out, no, I'll take it somewhere else before I'll let you do that. The second problem is the number of repairs has gone down since the pandemic because people got to be real germaphobes, right? And they don't want to have other people touch stuff and potentially get sick. That was early on. We know that's not going to get you sick anymore, but sort of habits have come into play here, and people have gone accustomed to moving in a different direction. And well, I appreciate suggestions coming from the audience. Unless there's something you can offer me, like if you say, Carey, I'd like to see more mini PC reviews, so I will send you something to help with that. Or I'd like to see more repair videos, so I will send you, let's talk about me sending you something for you to repair. It's all about establishing where the content comes from. I don't just wake up in the morning and decide I'm going to do a repair video. I have to have something to repair, and I have to have an owner of that equipment giving me permission to show that on camera. And as I mentioned, the vast majority of people that I do repairs for absolutely forbid me showing that on camera. And if I do, they will take their business somewhere else. They will sever ties with me. It's a very serious privacy concern. So yes, if you have There's no shortage of ideas for content that I have. It's not like I don't have anything to make. It's about funding how I make them. How do I pay for it? Where are these repairs coming from? And if you could help me solve that problem, that would be much more beneficial to me than telling me what you like. So I like them too, don't get me wrong. I enjoy doing repairs. Joshua says, I understand and thank you for the explanation. Hey, it's all good. I just want you to know what's going on behind the scenes. A lot of prep work goes into getting these videos prepared for making content, especially since they're live. A lot of last minute changes occur because I'm putting out so much work so quickly. When we initially did the thumbnail for this build, I had DDR4 RAM in the parts list and on the photo for the thumbnail. And it wasn't until about an hour before we were going live that it occurred to me this might actually have DDR5 in it, since it's one of the newer Miniforum models. Because the last two Miniforums I reviewed, the UM560 XT, is that the model? UM690 XT? 690. And of course, my personal favorite out of the new batch is the NPB7 with the clickable top. Those were both DDR5. And I thought, oh, this is in the same product family. And then I looked online, and it says DDR5, and I said to Camera Girl, I need you to change the thumbnail image to reflect DDR5. And then I went and edited the show notes, and that all happened minutes before we were going live. It's pretty hectic to get it all prepared. Then I thought, oh, I should add the iFixit toolkit since I know I'm going to be using that today, and inevitably people are going to ask me for it. So then, again, we're getting closer and closer to showtime, and before you know it, it's like a minute after the time I'm supposed to start, and I'm like, that's it, I got to go live, ready or not. It's a little bit of stress there, but that's why I'm going through them so quickly, and I'm just copying over settings from before. It's the same thing in an ironic way of when I mentioned I don't believe documentation or websites when they mention limitations, because they're often just copying and pasting from the previous model onto the new model with a little modification here and there. And sometimes something isn't retested, like the limits of storage capacity, for one reason or another, or it's forgotten, it's omitted, it's overlooked. I don't know. But I certainly understand why it happens. Tim Teal says, I just got a laptop in for repair that's putting notifications that you've been hacked on the screen and Malwarebytes isn't finding anything. Do I have any thoughts? Well, are the notifications happening in the browser or are they happening on the desktop? You could also look to see if there's any restore points that you can go back to before this started happening to see if you can restore the computer to an earlier point in time. It's interesting that Malwarebytes isn't finding it. It's always good to get 2 or 3 opinions from antivirus and anti-malware products. So I would recommend the MC Soft Emergency Kit, which you can download. Just Google EMSI-SOFT, Emergency Kit. It's a free download and executable. See if that finds anything. And of course, if any of our friends here in the chat room have suggestions, please type them in. I'm sure Tim Teal would appreciate. Politically Incorrect suggests Tim try System File Checker, SFC. I found SFC never works for me. I don't use it. Ben Laird says, a mini PC or a desktop? Oh, sorry, is he asking something to somebody else? Oh, let me share a story with you. Viewer reaches out to me, Facebook Messenger. And by the way, if you're not following me on Facebook or Twitter, please do. The links are in the video notes on how to do that. It'll take you right to my Twitter page and my Facebook page. Friend me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter. I've gone ahead and paid for the blue check on Twitter because Elon said, if you bring your podcast over to us, we will not take any revenue. You will get 100% of any revenue for the first 12 months, and after that, we'll take 10%. What? That sounds fantastic. So in order for me to do that, though, I have to be a member, which means I got to get the blue check, right? And it's like $84 a year or something. And I might be shifting more things towards Twitter if Twitter's going to pay better and treat me better than YouTube is. I'm not saying YouTube's going away, but it's just another avenue for which you can find content. I also posted a couple of news stories on Twitter that I shared. In this case, there are 3 news stories coming out of PC World. One was a study that showed if a mechanical hard drive is going to fail, it'll happen in the first 3 years statistically. If you can get past the first 3 years, you got a drive that's going to last a while. So does that mean when you buy a drive, you should buy a used one that's at least 3 years old? Like, I'm not quite sure how that information's helpful, but I thought it was interesting just the same. There's also a link about the Western Digital hack. So if you were buying things from Western Digital and you have your name and address and maybe credit card information, they got hacked in March. It was a pretty bad hack. Also, there was another news story I posted about, well, heck, we should just be able to go to Twitter and look. Let me go to Twitter. And I always put links to my upcoming videos there, so if YouTube notifications aren't working for you, Twitter may be another way. A link to the PCIe Gen 5 solid state drive, which is shipping, and it's the one I ordered, is there from PC World magazine. There's an article that PC World published called 4 Reasons to Switch to Windows 11 and 5 Reasons Not to. So I put that in there. It seemed like a fun article. There's an alert that MSI and Intel software keys are in the wild, meaning that MSI got hacked. It was a pretty brutal hack. They were told to pay a ransom. MSI did not pay it. So now all these keys that verify if something is authentic or not from MSI, like, BIOS update, they're on the dark web now because MSI did not pay the ransom. That means if you don't know the exact source of where you got that BIOS update from some third party, it could infect your system at a BIOS level. That wasn't possible before because of the security keys, but now that security keys have been stolen, so there we are. It says most dead hard drives fail within 3 years. And that was information that storage server farm like Backblaze that goes through a lot of hard drives voluntarily keeps track of how drives of different makes and models are living in their very harsh environment where data is just being written to in massive quantities every second of every day without a break. Which doesn't exactly reflect how you and I use our drives, but it's interesting to see how the drives are holding up in that environment, which drives are doing better. There's also a great video, a little short video from Theo Joe that is a shortcut you can make on your keyboard to take you right into your BIOS. So instead of pressing delete or F12 or F10, you can create a shortcut on the desktop, typing this command in and just call it reboot to BIOS. And then just double click on that and your system will reboot and go into your BIOS. And this assumes you have a UEFI BIOS. And all of these links that I'm mentioning are all on my Twitter feed. And it doesn't cost anything. Just go to twitter.com, look for the CareyHolzman. You should see my cartoon face and a link to today's video right there at the top, and hit the follow button. Mark Leibowitz tells Tim, I find that most of the pop-ups of the type you described come from the web browser, either from a trick web page or the browser's notification system. Yeah, I've had a number of clients complain they're getting pop-ups when they're not, they're getting notifications. And you got to go into the Chrome extensions or Microsoft Edge extensions and What's happening is the customers are going to websites and they want to show notifications, block or allow. The customers are not reading that. Customers are thinking they have to click allow in order to see the content, when in fact they're clicking allow to see notifications. And then they do that for all these websites, and they start getting the little notifications on the bottom right side, and they call me and say, I'm getting all these pop-ups. They're not pop-ups. You clicked allow. Stop clicking allow. I thought I had to. No. If you see allow or block, your default should always be block. Block, block, block. In the meantime, that's real easy to clean out. Just go into the settings under extensions and just start removing them one by one. If that's what he's experiencing, I don't know. Dom says the blue check on Twitter doesn't mean anything anymore. If to get it, you just pay for it. Yeah, but in order for me to be a content creator and use the revenue generation abilities Twitter offers, it does mean something, because I can't do it without the blue check. Let's see. Jason Willis says, I just joined Twitter and I am the 2078th follower. Right on. I appreciate that. Ben Laird says, who still uses mechanical hard drives? Well, anybody that needs a lot of storage, mechanical hard drives are the most affordable way to get to massive amounts of storage. And I use mechanical drives and video storage servers and network attached storage. Camera Girl, we just put 4 20 terabyte drives in her Synology.
Delicious.
60 terabytes with 20 terabyte drive failover. And how much of that are you using?
All of it.
You are not. Can you imagine what that would cost if it was all solid state? Ooh. And the network performance wouldn't benefit from it. Oh, yeah, for sure. Gerhard Huff says you can also use Control-Shift-Restart. That'll bring up a Windows dialog to boot to BIOS. I'll have to try that sometime. I can never remember the combination, and sometimes it matters if it's the left shift or the right shift. I can't remember. Jim KJ3N says, yeah, when you can buy a 16 terabyte solid state drive for under $300, please let me know.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. I suspect that'll be, oh,
I'll take that.
you're already on the list. He says, I learned that from Theo Joe. There you go. Larry G says, hello, Carey, chat, and camera girl.
Hi.
Hello, Larry. All right, guys. Any other technical questions or anything you want to know about the mini PC I can answer for you? As I mentioned, this is being sold as a budget gaming PC. So you want to do 1080 gaming on it. It should do most 1080 games with no problem. However, I'm not a gamer in the sense of what you guys define as gaming nowadays. You know, you pull up Galaga anytime for me. Bring that up. In fact, speaking of that, I just got a new one. I just got a new mini arcade game that the folks at New Wave Toys released. I think I paid for this a year and a half ago, but because of the pandemic and everything, it took a long time to get the products back in stock and distribution to get going again. In fact, I ordered a little Space Invaders from the folks over at, what's their name? But the Space Invaders box is a little bigger, and that was 2 years ago, and they're still just now finalizing production on it. So Space Ace, for those of you that remember, those of you likely Gen Xers out there, was an upgrade to Dragon's Lair. Dragon's Lair was a video game that used a laser disc, and it was a cartoon. And essentially you'd move the joystick at a certain time in the direction that would flash on the screen. It's all about timing and moving that joystick in the right direction at the right time. And if you did, it would move on to the next segment of cartoon, and if you didn't, it would go to like the death section of the cartoon. And you worked your way through the game. And then, of course, there was a follow-up where you could upgrade the Dragon's Lair cabinet to a Space Ace cabinet. And what the folks at New Wave Toys have done is they've made these games, including the cabinets, exact scaled-down replicas to every detail. So let me show you. If I turn this on, the marquee lights up. Assuming I don't have a dead battery. Did that light up? There it goes. So it's booting right now. Will you get let's get the close-up camera. I want people to see the detail on this thing. It's crazy good. Let me see.
Also pain in the butt to play.
Oh, but that's where it gets really cool.
No.
In the back of this,
Teeny tiny.
on the back of this, we have an HDMI port, so we can hook this up to a...
Space Ace, defender of justice.
We can hook this up to a television if the screen's too small, and a USB controller if the controller's too small. All right, you ready for the close-up?
By the Infanto Ray.
All right, come over now.
Struggle with Dexter to regain his manhood. Destroy the Infanto Rays. Defeat the evil Borg.
Hey, Bart.
It even has the scoreboard, just like the real arcade.
I've been hit.
Be valiant, Space Warrior. The fate of Earth is in your hands.
I don't know if these are available for public sale yet, but they make a very limited number of them, and they do sell out, and they become more or less collector's items that will sell for 3 or 4 times what you paid for it on eBay. And like the real arcade, well, let me lower the volume.
Defender of justice, truth, and the planet Earth. Ace is being
There's a drawer here, just like Dragon's Lair, and there's a little model of the Laserdisc player inside that exactly replicates the actual full-size arcade game. Check this out. And then in the box, there's a little tiny Laserdisc. Now, of course, this doesn't work. It's for looks, it's for show, but it is exact replica. All the wording, all the buttons, everything is exactly the way it actually was, which you would never know unless you got to work on one. That's why I think it's so preposterous. They've gone through the effort and expense of including this, but it keeps it, you know, true to accurate. So it's just there for looks. On the back, we've got our power button. You see it's running off a battery, but we can also run it from USB, which is looks like a USB Type-C. This is our volume control. This is the HDMI out. So if I take this HDMI cable from this mini PC right here and plug it in
By the Infanto Ray.
right here, and then I turn on Windows Capture, that's not window capture, I need HDMI input. Let's try that again. Now I'm getting to direct to capture card video. That is exactly the demo mode that would run in the arcade. It is exactly true to the arcade. All the dimensions, everything is all scaled down perfectly. Let me go back over to the close-up camera and show you the front of the unit. Come around here. Let me unplug this cable and get it out of the way.
No way, Morphle, buddy.
I'll put it back where it was.
By the Infanto Ray.
On the front of the unit, you even have this little coin door here.
destroy the
And if you
Infanto
push
Rays.
where you would put the coin, it even comes with little tiny coins, but they don't actually go in there. Is this open?
Come on, Kimberly, let's go.
Even the coin door even
I've been
opens.
hit.
What's in there? Anything?
Be valiant, Space Warrior. The fate of Earth
I have
is
no
in
idea
your
why that
hands.
opens. So one of these is like simulating a coin drop. Right, that's the credit going in. The other one brings up a menu of settings you can adjust on the game itself to your own preferences. We couldn't do this in the arcade. Well, to some extent, the operator had some control over these settings. It's really, really cool. They do such a great job at New Wave Toys. Shiloh over there, this guy's attention to detail and accuracy from everything from the cabinet design, the color, even the marquee and the stickers, the graphic art on the side, size, all aspects of it are exactly what you would have seen in the arcade in the 1980s, just shrunken down. So he's got a couple that he's made that I have no interest in, like Missile Command and Food Fight and Ghosts and Goblins. I never played these games, so I think that was also called Ghouls and Ghosts. I don't just buy them because they're 1980s replicas. I buy them because I really enjoyed playing them. So I took a pass on those other games, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else they've got coming out. They have a Dig Dug, Centipede, Tempest, Pac-Man, Ms. Pac-Man, Galaxian, and those are all sold out. All those I just mentioned, they're gone. They recently remade another line of Dragon's Lair games, and you need to go to New Wave Toys, sign up on their email list if you're interested, because they're only available for a limited window, and this was a pre-order from almost 2 years ago. So you need to pre-order it and be patient. Normally it wouldn't take that long, but nobody foresaw the pandemic happening, and as a result, with the distribution problems and getting parts, the supply chain was all screwed up. So hopefully that's behind us now, and I hope to have my Space Invaders from a company called Quarter Arcades. Space Invaders cabinet and the Quarter Arcade cabinets are bigger, and they run around a $300 price point. This one, I think, have they offered it for sale yet? Let me see. Let's go to New Wave Toys, and I'll give Camera Girl a break, and we'll go to the window capture now. Here we go. Thank you. So Space Ace says it's coming soon. This is where you can get their newsletter, so you can be aware of when it's available to the public. Everybody who pre-ordered is getting it now. They had 2 versions of it. This one has the red T molding and a different cabinet design. And the one I ordered has the Dragon's Lair cabinet design. You can see the difference, like we're on this one where it's angled down, and this one is more upright, more raked forward. But that's exactly the models that were available for arcade owners to buy or to lease out. But you'll see these are all sold. That's sold out. This one's coming soon. Ghosts and Goblins, I don't care about it. The $159 price is really good value. So they have 2 versions of the game here, different cabinets that they were available in. So they just keep the detail fantastic. Missile Command, they have available in both arcade cabinet styles. But again, not a game I enjoyed playing. 1942, sold out. They have little bar stools to match the arcade. There's a little, what looks like a little Sony Walkman that's actually a power bank. And they have these little mini boom boxes. I don't know what they do. And I never had a boombox like that, but apparently the M90 was a pretty popular boombox back in the day, I guess. They're going to have a Coca-Cola vending machine that's just a battery bank, so you can power your arcade game with a charged battery bank that looks like a Coke vending machine. Supposedly they're coming out with the Zoltar, which I think is just a waste of money. And then these little change machines that would be in the arcade, these are USB chargers as well. And they've got a book of arcade art, the marquee art. These are the little mini controllers you can plug in through USB if the controller on the unit's too small for you. They have this little insert 25-cent insert coin keychain, which is pretty much to size replica of what was on the arcades back in the day. And that's all made of like a real heavy steel. And a bunch of 80s style posters. Everything is sold out, sold out, sold out, sold out. Q-Bird is sold out. Tempest is sold out. Street Fighter 2, good luck finding one of those. So this is their first series of arcade games. And they're kind of teasing with a side profile of what the arcade looks like. But these are going to be what's in the works coming up this year. And of course, you'll find out by signing up to the email as they release what it is and how you can pre-order it. So they'll release probably, in many cases, there's 2 versions of the game, right? There could be 2 different cabinets. So likely these 2 are the same game. These 2 are likely the same game. These 2 are the same game. And I would guess these 2. Boy, that almost looks like Tron. It's fun. That's at newwavetoys.com. I can't speak highly enough about the quality of the product. I just can't get over how detailed it is. It's really cool. Sorry, it was my Gen X showing. Let me go back to camera 1. Here we go. And I'll take another quick look here in the chat and see if there's any final questions I can answer. We're just over 2 hours. We're about 2.5 hours into today's broadcast. Bikeman wants to know, what do you all recommend for fixing a SanDisk USB 256 gig flash drive speed in Windows 11 Pro 64-bit? It's transferring at a miserable 2.56 megabytes and slower. So SanDisk doesn't make a one-speed fits-all USB drive. What is the model of flash drive you have? What is it supposed to transfer speed at? Or if you take that flash drive and put it in a different computer, what are the speeds that flash drive shows on a different computer? Starshine says, I still have my old Atari ST computer from 35-year-old box. Wow. Hughes Adventure said I would like to see them make a Double Dragon. Did you ever play Double Dragon?
No.
I was never into the fighting games.
Tempest. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, we have Tempest. It's in the other room.
I know.
Chris Johnson said I was a Xevious fan. Yeah, I played some Xevious. I'd like to see them do a mini Xevious too. Doman says you can run these classics in MAME. Yeah, you absolutely can. You know, one of the things people who weren't around in the 80s don't get is playing Galaga on a horizontal screen. You get these black bars on the side, right? Because it's a vertical game. And then controlling it with a keyboard and a mouse or a joystick, it's not Galaga. The spacing of the controls, the height of the controls, how the controls feel is critical to the gameplay. So for me, somebody who spent many a quarter and many an afternoon dumping quarter after quarter and hour after hour in the arcade, simply emulating the game itself isn't enough for me. I need it to have the feel. Now in this case, it certainly doesn't have the feel, but in a game like this, the feel's not that important because you're just moving the joystick once in a certain direction at a certain time, or the fire button. In a game like Galaga, the height of the controller, the spacing between the joystick and the fire button, even when they make like these all-in-one arcade cabinets that have like 60 games in one, so you have a roller ball, you have a joystick that moves in all directions, you have 3 or 4 buttons for, you know, things like games like Defender where you had reverse and hyper, what was it called? Yeah, like 4 different firing buttons. To me, that's not Galaga. Galaga, the joystick only moves left or right. You cannot move it up or down even if you wanted to. You only have one button, that's fire, and then 2 other buttons for 1-player or 2-player game. That's it, that's all the console has. And how that joystick feels and how that fire button feels is critical to the gameplay, along with the distance to the monitor and the angle the monitor is on, and the fact that it's a CRT and not an LED or LCD monitor makes a massive difference in that nostalgia factor. So a lot of the emulators that emulate the games don't emulate them properly. They're different. Sometimes the gameplay is different. Sometimes the way the game looks or sounds is different. Some emulation is better than others. But just emulating the game itself is half of the experience. The other half is the feel, the location, the spacing, and the height of the controllers. That is 50% of the game. Now, you show me an emulator that emulates the controller properly, I'm all on board with it. But giving me one console that has a little bit of everything on it, the spacing's all wrong, the feel is all wrong. So when New Wave Toys and when Quarter Arcades are making their replicas, these are exact replicas. They're only shrunken down. It's not an emulator. The game is exactly the same game. They haven't translated it in a way that changes something about it. It is identical to how it plays, the logic that it uses. It's the same speed. It's at the same pace. So if you know how to play the big one, then you know how to play the small one. There's no difference other than the size. I have a great respect for that, attention to the detail. Does it have a mini JAMA connector inside? No, it does not. It does come with little teeny quarters and a little laser disc. Gary Tatum said, that's the problem with Tempest. I really need that spinning knob. Agreed, and that's a great example. So on the little mini Tempest that they make, they give you several different little knobs because I guess they expect you're going to break them. But they're just plastic. They're not the weighted knob that can gain momentum when you spin it really fast. It has a nice feel. It's chunky and clicky. Yeah, they don't emulate that. But the rest of the game is the same. And Tempest was unique that way. And that control was critical. The size of it, the weight of it, the spacing on it. Yeah, just simply using MAME, it's only half the game. Boss in the chat room says hello. Hey, boss, welcome in. Are you going to go get Tempest?
No, actually, it was the Donkey Kong cabinet. I think that one's pretty good.
The Donkey Kong cabinet was something I bought off eBay. It's a piece of junk. It was overpriced.
Well, it's good.
The screen,
Big enough?
no, it's not big enough.
It is.
It's Donkey Kong one I got off some seller on eBay in Romania or something. It's completely illegal knockoff, and it's about half the height of this. It's dollhouse size. The screen.
I'm talking about the big one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, well that one's also illegal. That one I got off of eBay. I also got that one off eBay. But what I don't like about that one is the way they designed the controller. They put the controller on an angle, and it covers the bottom 1 inch of the LCD screen. So when I'm playing, I'm trying to look past. It really irritates me. They should have made that. They should have made it a little taller.
It works good though.
Well, it's a JAMA 60-in-1 board is what that is. And it's totally portable. It's desktop. Just pop it on the desk and plug it in, and you got 60 arcade games in one, and they're true.
And it's a good size.
True code.
It's not teeny tiny like that.
No, it's a full-size arcade game without the big cabinet. Yeah, it's even got a 17-inch vertical monitor. But that doesn't benefit any horizontal games like Defender, Joust, Moon Patrol. Then I have to buy a separate arcade game with the horizontal screen for those games. Goman says it's a roller ball, not a trackball. Ah, that's true. It's a roller ball. Games like Marble Madness,
Yeah.
Missile Command, Centipede, Millipede, yeah, had that roller ball. Politically Incorrect says, I have a large collection of mini cabinets like this from different makes. My favorite is Burger Time and Beer Tapper. Yeah, again, there are two games I just didn't play. I was never into either of those. Yeah, I couldn't get into it. Gary says, expensive but worth it, and he's posted a link to what? Oh, arcade shop control panels. Yeah, those are proper control panels. Ooh, I like that Galaga one. $250. Is it just the panel? What do you do with it? It's an upright, complete joystick trackball. Oh, that looks good. With a Galaga theme overlay. Oh, they sell the cabinets and you basically lock that into the cabinet. Hey, I could build my own JAMA get the controller board, buy the cabinet, get the monitor, get the coin door. It's got to have the coin door or it's not authentic. And the coin door better work. Even the glass bezels. But I'll be honest, I think to put it together this way is going to cost you more money than just going to like Todd Tuckey over at TNT Amusements and just buying the real arcade game. I see Galaga machines pretty inexpensively. In fact, there was one, it almost seems too cheap to be true. I'll show you. Galaga arcade for sale. And I'm trying to think where this website was. I don't like the arcade one-ups. Those are emulated and they're too small, and the gameplay, they're getting better, but they're just really cheap quality. Here's a full-size upright for $2,199. Yeah, this website, the deal seems too good to be true. I'm going to show it to you. You guys tell me if you know anything about it, because I'm so tempted. Where's my window capture? Okay, so this website is called Arcades Market. And if you look at the Galaga, this is normally about a $1,600 to $2,400 machine if it's real. If it's a real Galaga machine. Now this says it's refurbished, and I don't care if it's refurbished as long as it's original. And it's saying it's $1,180, which sounds way too cheap to be true, because it's 250 pounds, it's a full-size arcade, 68 inches tall, 32 inches deep, 25 inches wide. I mean, that's it. It's going to ship on a pallet that's 72 inches tall and 38 inches wide, so it's going to be trucked to you. They got a lot of misspellings on the website, and I don't understand. That's been the price for like a year. How have they not sold out of it if that's real? It says click here to see more Galaga. I mean, it looks like the real deal. I see a coin door. Obviously, the overlays and stickers would need to be replaced just due to age, but it looks like they got new T-molding. The green molding running down the side is called T-molding. And the kick plate, they have a new. But is this running a JAMA board? Because, well, now this one says it's $1,380. Why is this $200 more? I don't know. The prices look too good to be true. Are they including free shipping with that too? I thought it said it was free shipping. You know how much money that would cost to ship? It's got to be about $400. What if I hit add to cart? I can pay with PayPal and put it on 6 months, no interest if paid in full within 6 months. That's like $200 a month. But are they charging me shipping? Shipping will be calculated at the next step. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's going to be real at that price. It sounds like it's going to be emulated. And that's okay. If it's a JAMA board, that's fine. I just want to know what I'm getting. Because it says it's refurbished, I don't know. Also, why is the price different here? Is this a different unit than the one over here that they want $200 more for? Is this an oversight or a mistake? Now, I do have a full-size Galaga with a JAMA board in it at Studio A, and I really just need to bring it over to Studio B, but I don't want to move it. It's 250 pounds. I also don't have a vehicle big enough to move it in. I certainly don't need two of them. I want two of them. I need it for the background for the set. The justification machine is at work here. Ah, well, maybe one of these days. Let's see what my chat room is saying. Where'd my chat room go? I lost it. Live chat. There it is. Starshine said I should send him an email and ask him. Yeah, I should call him. I'd rather talk to them on the phone. I'd rather talk to somebody who's ordered something from them and told me if it was as good as it appears. Toman 2000 says, real arcade machines are cool, but you need the space and maintenance for it. I'm fine with my vertical MAME and nice scan lines and artwork. Yeah, you know, to each their own. I want to replicate what I experienced as a teenager in my house. I mean, that was, imagine being 15 years old and having an arcade machine in the 1980s in your home. You'd be like one of the rich kids to do that, you know. That was a fantasy. And now, a lot of people my age are buying these machines up. And they made a lot of Galaga machines. It's surprisingly scarce. But they do go up for sale. That typically people do sell them. They get bored of them or get a divorce or get married, whatever happens, and have to get rid of it for one reason or another. And a lot of them I'm seeing for sale are on the East Coast, which, you know, I'm not going to drive, go pick it up. Now, if I end up getting a property in Michigan, Todd Tuckey's TNT Amusements in Philadelphia will drive and personally deliver any arcades I buy from Philadelphia to Grand Rapids. It's not that far of a drive for him. But yeah, this is fantastic. And I was going to grab the Tempest and show that one off too, because Tempest was a very unique game for its era, and that it used raster graphics, and how they're able to emulate that on an LCD is really impressive. Pardon the dust, it's been sitting around a while, and I don't know if it still has a charge on the battery or not. But let's see if I hit the power button back here. Oh, okay. Coin door's lit up. There it goes. Should we get the close-up camera on this one? Let me turn this one off. It says powering off. I need a microfiber cloth. Let me grab a microfiber cloth while you get camera 2 turned on. I also like supporting small businesses like New Wave Toys. You know, they do these short runs, and the attention to detail just blows my mind. Come check this out. Let's go to the close-up camera. You ready? Mm-hmm. Come on over. So here's our spinner. Player 1 and Player 2 buttons emulate exactly the way they were in the arcade. The shape, the LED, everything is exact. Your 2 buttons here, your coin door down here. It's so cool. All right, let's see what happens. Let's hit. Oh, I gotta push one of the buttons to simulate putting a coin in. 1 player. And I can raise the volume. You're smiling. Is that bringing back memories? You know how hard this is to play backwards?
Finally, because you're doing such a good job playing it backwards.
I think I play it better. Wow. New high score. Oh.
Gotta use your supercharger.
Oh, I never use that button. Whoopsie.
Supercharger.
Okay. You tell me when to hit it, and I'll hit it. should stream my gaming on Twitch. There's a supercharger. There it is again. I think I just wasted it. I think I ran out of it.
Yeah.
Got to avoid the spikes. Oh, I think I died.
He died it.
Anyway, it's just like the arcade, just super tiny. Now, this is an older model, so they don't have the HDMI and stuff on it like the newer ones do. So I hope they go back and revisit these. What's really cool is the centipede that they have has a little tiny trackball. And it's incredibly smooth and it's so well done. And like I say, the details, all of the arcade graphics are exactly as they were, just shrunken down in size. And if you're lucky, you might be able to find one on eBay, but they sold out of them a long time ago, and you're going to pay a lot more than $170 for it. So, yeah. And I love that you can align these and have your own little miniature arcade, you know, for all the models they make. So I'm excited to see what they've got coming out next. A shout out to the folks over at New Wave Toys. All right, I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to camera 1. Thank you.
Welcome.
You're clear. And I'll just go look in the chat room and see what we've been missing. We're going to be at the 3-hour mark in about 13 minutes, so we'll go ahead and start wrapping this up. Chris Johnson said he was good at Tempest. I was never good at Tempest. But I enjoyed playing it. That's why I bought it. But I was never good at it.
Well, you have to play backwards.
Yeah, that's the secret. Huh? Wasn't tall enough to play the real one backwards. Ray Burke says I can rent a U-Haul truck. Yeah. Preferably just have a friend with a truck. Say, what are you doing this weekend? That's the question. Does anybody have any questions for me regarding the mini PCs or computers in general that I can answer for you? I'd be happy to address any final questions before we wrap it up. You know, this is YouTube, it's not TV. So the whole point of it is for us to interact. And of course, within the chat room itself, while I do see some dialogue happening, I encourage you to talk to one another. Users helping users. I love that. And I love to see the interaction and the friendships that are being formed here in the chat from people all over the world. It's just the coolest effect ever of having a YouTube channel, or at least having one like this. U-Haul is $25 to rent. Oh, it's going to be more than that. You got to fill up the gas tank. You've got to pay for insurance. And there's a deposit. I know they advertise it at $25, and then there's taxes and fees. When it's all said and done, it'll be probably closer to $70. But that's how they get you. You know, say, rent me for $19.95, and then you get in there and there's all these fees and such. I guess I can shut this computer down where we're waiting. Let me switch back over to the HDMI input. I think it went to sleep. Let me wiggle the mouse and see if it wakes up. Wakey, wakey. Hello, computer. Make sure I got the cable plugged in all the way here. Come on, Carey, plug the cable in, man. There it is. So apparently you gotta have the cable plugged in. And let me jump over to full screen over here. And I'm gonna pull my flash drive because we're done with that. And the crystal disk mark, put that away. And we'll go over here to shut down. Wow, that shuts down quick, doesn't it? And then we can go back over to camera 1. There I am. Arnold wants to know how long before you suggest someone should wait before they build a reliable modern PC. No better time than now. As soon as you can afford it. There's a lot of how to build a PC videos here on this channel, going all the way back to 2008. But I recommend any of the 8-year builds. And just follow along. Even if your motherboard and processor and RAM are different, it's still the same installation process. Starshine said I could take the arcade apart and move it piece by piece and put it back together over here. I don't want to work that hard. Richard Cullen saying good night to the chat room and to Carrie and Camera Girl. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us today, Richard. Good to see you, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. Mortant's just joining us. Hey, Mortant, we're just wrapping it up, getting ready to say goodbye. Thank you guys again for hanging out. Thanks again for the Super Chat contributions that came in from, where's my, oh, I didn't have it selected. Oh, it's still got it recorded though. Bunch of membership renewals from Barry Chandler and Michael Morello. Those are 2 new members. Charlie Pat 74, also a new member. Welcome to our new members. Thank you, of course, out to Mark Gaines, once again, watching us in the UK. Al Hej Tepej, now a member for 5 months. Thank you to Peter Laycock, our friend out there in Scotland. Davis Parsons. Patrick Manny continues his membership now for 12 months, as does Chris Johnson. You guys rock. Thank you so, so much. Thank you to Luke Greenia for his PayPal contribution earlier. And should be live again tomorrow at 1 o'clock and Friday at 1 o'clock. I'm just trying to catch up with my backlog. I'm kind of curious what other PCs will see this 4 terabyte drive. So what I'm going to do is I'll put this RAM and solid state drive back in here as it was, because I'm afraid I'm going to need them again. I've got some more DDR5 on order, and I've got that 8 terabyte NVMe on order. And I have the PCIe Gen 5 NVMe drive on order. And when those come in, I'll start utilizing them to do some more testing and evaluations, including over here, which you can't see, is that Cougar Conquer case, what our friend Mitch refers to as the robot's foot. That's got that 13900KS processor, which is like $850 for that processor right now on Amazon. Ridiculous. But that should be a Gen 5 capable motherboard. That's the Z790 or something like that from Gigabyte. So that's the only motherboard I've got that would accept Gen 5. So fingers crossed that that Gen 5 NVMe will work in that board, because I've got the board all functional. It's even installed in the robot's foot case. With Camera Girl's help, we can hoist that thing up on the counter, put that Gen 5 NVMe in it, and run Crystal Disk Mark and see what kind of numbers we get. Again, it's really stupid. It's not going to result in much savings of time, but it is going to cost a very shiny penny. So for those of you who have the luxury of that kind of extra money laying around, who want those few extra milliseconds, I'll show you what it's like to live with, what you can expect from it. For the rest of you, you can feel better not buying it because, well, the numbers look good on benchmarks. Your boot up time and program load times aren't going to be very noticeable. If you're heavy into game playing and you want to load all your games onto your solid state drive, game loading between levels would be faster, noticeably faster on a Gen 5 drive. And there are certain ways of applications, using applications on computers where it does make sense to spend that money for a Gen 5 drive. For the vast majority of people, you're just chasing numbers, and it's a very expensive game to play. So hopefully by me showing it, you won't have to experience it on your own. You'll know exactly what to expect for that kind of money. And if that's something you want to do, then that's entirely up to you. But at least I can set your expectations. It won't be such a gamble. as it is for me. But, you know, the benefit is hundreds, if not thousands of people can benefit from me demonstrating that, and then that can help them determine if that's something that's a waste of money for them or if that's something worth investing in. That's for each individual to decide on their own. But generally speaking, these high-performance drives are really an enthusiast activity. Not many home users would notice any benefit and would cost them significantly more for diminishing returns. But I'll leave that to each of you to decide. But I just want to get you more information so you can make a better, more accurate decision once you see the real difference it makes. We can measure boot times, we can measure program load times, and you'll see the amount of time it takes you to stop the stopwatch, maybe milliseconds, that matches the milliseconds faster a 10,000 megabyte per second drive will do compared to a 5,000 megabyte per second drive, or 3,000, or a 2,000, or a 1,000. Tiny little differences. And I'll demonstrate it so you don't have to take my word for it, because that's the Gen X way. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Thank you, Camera Girl, for your work. And we're just going to wrap it up here right under the 3-hour mark. Perfect. My thanks goes out to Miniforum. And hopefully I'll reach out to TEAMGROUP and maybe we can work with them. I really like their products. Links to everything are in the video description below the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.